has begun. We will start with a roll call.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with roll call. Vice Chair Sherry?
Yes.
Board Member Gaffidy?
Yes.
Board Member Mosley?
Yes.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
We have quorum.
All right. First on the agenda is public comment. This is for general public comment for any item not on the agenda today.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for general public comment. However, if anyone wishes to make a general public comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, so we will turn our attention to virtual comment. At this time, I do not have any hands raised for virtual general public comment, and we did not receive any correspondence for general public comment. So at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
All right, thank you. Next is approval of the minutes from the full board meeting on March 24th. Did anyone have any revisions?
I had one, or just a couple, actually,
Okay.
on item one. It was the number two, the appearance is minimal in design. I think that,
I was trying to figure out what that meant too.
I think that what we meant to say was that the visual, the visual appearance.
Should
Oh,
be.
Board Member Sherry, can you turn on your microphone, please?
Oh, I thought I
Thank
did.
you.
Okay, sorry.
No, all good.
Do you want to take a stab at what we meant? I think we meant the appearance is minimal from the public, from public views. And I don't think we meant to say the appearance is minimal in design.
I think it was like because there's like the existing structure is like the change or like what they proposed was minimal. And
Staff, do you have recommendations for this? Because I'd recommend just scratching that whole statement.
Yeah, I think the comment had to do with exactly what you guys are talking about. I mean, maybe the appearance is minimally design and another verb for coordinates. That was what was said at the hearing, so that we couldn't really, if there's a better verb you guys can suggest, but we can also X out the second comment completely if you feel like it's not contributing to the motion. Is that something we can
No,
do?
I think it just needs
It
to
could say
state
the
that-
proposed, or because it's just about the proposed second floor. Coordinates with the materials of the existing
Or
structure.
we could say the visual impact is
impact
minimal.
minimal.
Okay.
And
There you go.
coordinates with the materials of the existing structure.
I accept that
Okay.
revision.
And then I had a comment on item 2, number 3 and 4. They were just really minor. And number 3 said, there's just a typo.
for
If
references.
it can be supported by references in the neighborhood. And then on number 4, the board would like to see consistency of material with a cohesive I don't know, some sort of, sounds a little,
Yeah.
maybe a bit too casual for a minute item, with cohesive,
Cohesive
with a
reasoning of
cohesive
materials.
understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
that's it.
Any other revisions?
I think there was a typo on the first one, palette. If you go back to the item that we were reviewing, the deck on. Yes, I think number 3, a material palette.
Perfect. Okay. Then I'll move to approve the minutes with the given revisions.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry?
Yes.
Board Member Gaffidy?
Yes.
Board Member Mosley?
Yes.
We have quorum. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Next is approval of the minutes from the consent meeting on March 17th. That was Board Member Sherry.
I don't think I have anything, but just run through really, yeah, right here. Okay. And hold on one second. Go back to number 2. Okay, that's fine. What was amended about it? Oh, the proposed color of the fascia should match the almost black color. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the consent minutes of March 17th.
Second?
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Mosley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next is ratification of the action taken on the consent calendar for Tuesday, April 1st and Monday, April 7th.
Great. So I won't read out what was on the April 1st consent calendar because that was posted on the full board agenda. I will go ahead and announce the findings for April 7th. 222 Las Ondas was granted project design approval and final approval with conditions. 3415 Campanile Drive was granted final approval as submitted. 2322 Chapala Street, the minor zoning exception was approved. And 202 La Vista Grande was continued indefinitely to the consent calendar.
All right, I move to ratify the actions taken at the consent calendar for April 1st and April 7th.
Second.
Yeah.
Oh, go for it.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Either.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a vote. Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Mosley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next is announcements, request for continuance, future agenda items.
Thank you, board members. Chair Lewis, Ellen Kokenda, Design Review Supervisor. I just wanted to make an announcement because I know that we do have multiple openings on the Single Family Design Board. And tomorrow, April 8th, City Council was scheduling interviews. If you haven't been noticed already, that council meeting tomorrow has been canceled. Councilmember Friedman had an unexpected heart attack over the weekend and is at Cottage Hospital and is recovering, and we wish him well. And council meetings have been canceled tomorrow. So I do know that that was one of the interview dates for our advisory appointments, and I know that we had multiple applications. So I just wanted to request that you stay tuned. There's still 2 dates that are posted through the city clerk's office online about when the other council interviews will happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is a makeup date for a 3rd opportunity, but just be aware of that. So I just didn't want anybody to show up to council tomorrow.
And
Thank you.
I'll just tag on to that I already talked to Norma, and you probably have as well, but I rescheduled for the next available meeting, and we don't know, she doesn't know whether it's going to be a virtual attendance or an in-person attendance. She's going to let us know, so just an FYI.
I see the dates as April 15th and April 22nd. So just, yeah, thank you so much for that message.
All right, any other announcements? Okay, we'll move to our first agenda item. This is a new item here for project design and final approval. Proposal to legalize existing as-built 105 square foot second story deck. The project includes the addition of a new privacy screening for upper and lower decks and a new southern landscaped screening trellis. Removal of spiral staircase, upgrades of deck guardrail systems and lower stair. The project substantially conforms to the previous modification approvals for interior setback encroachments into the eastern and western setbacks. SFDB previously approved a 32 square foot Juliet balcony at the location and removal of the spiral staircase under PLN 2016-357. Abatement of enforcement case ENF 2014-1142 is under separate permits. Okay, so staff, this is listed as a new item, but I know that we've seen this before. If you want to give us an overview?
If I may, Chair Lewis and board members, so again, Ellen Kokenda, Design Review Supervisor, I want to provide a little bit of background just to clarify for this particular project. So this, the house, this project was approved under a 2016 PLN record, which was initiated after a 2014 enforcement case. So there were a number of things identified on site as being as-built or built without permits. And so this homeowner applicant ended up applying for a planning application to abate those violations. That included the 2 interior setback modifications, which were granted in the 2016 era. I'm going to say era. I don't have the exact dates in front of me. But subsequently, the project went in, submitted for building permit application to rectify those and address the outstanding enforcement items. However, the permit, that building permit, was never finalized. So this homeowner and applicant have been working with the city to continue to address some of those items. And under that 2016 PLN record, a Juliet balcony was approved, and this homeowner would like that to be reconsidered. So during the 2016 era, I think it went back and forth between what could be approved. It's as-built, so there's currently a larger upper story deck there. And this project came before the SFDB in June of 2023, and it came in as a review after final under that 2016 permit. And the single family design board, which had slightly different membership at the time, gave guidance to come back with a fully fleshed out plans and request. This was under a different agent at the time, and the plans didn't have the full picture of what was being requested. So essentially, the board said, just tell us what you want, be upfront, let us know and make sure that your plans support that. This homeowner has since selected a new agent that's come in with, again, kind of a new concept for the decks, or to address the desire of the homeowner and to kind of fulfill this wish to see a different, to see new decking approved. This particular set of plans that's in front of you triggered a substantial conformance determination because, as I mentioned, one of the modifications was an interior setback modification, and the stairs that lead from ground level to the lower deck are in the setback, and then that landing is in the setback as well. So staff already reviewed that and granted a substantial conformance determination for those elements, and it didn't trigger an additional modification because it met those, just the stairs and the railing and that the landing met the intention of the original modification. So no new modification is required at this time. And the applicant has provided plans with much more information, and we've put it actually under we've created a new planning number. One, because this applicant has an issued building permit. They have a vested approval for the Juliet balcony, and we don't want to mess with that. So this is under just kind of a new concept, a new plan that's in front of you, and they are asking for project design approval and final approval today. One other thing that I want to note is that this particular, the set of plans that staff have reviewed and that are posted do show that the lower deck conforms with the interior setback on the western side, but we do have a survey, a land survey that was prepared by a licensed land surveyor that shows that the interior setback line isn't parallel with the lower deck. And so I've already informed this applicant that at the time of building permit application, should this project be approved, that we would require a survey because we wouldn't want to trigger a new modification. So it's just to show compliance that the as-built lower deck complies, and if not, it would need to be brought in to comply, or they'd have to seek a modification. So I know that's really dense, but let's keep this simple, that this is a new, just think of this as new decking, and the applicant is going to walk you through those plans. And I've been working with the applicant, again, to try to fulfill your original request to just say, just tell us what you want. How are you going to address these concerns with privacy? We've had neighbors who've been very interested in kind of how this evolves. And as you can tell, this has been going on for quite a while. So I think that everyone has an interest of kind of getting this resolved, and you'll be able to assess that. And I know seems like we have members in the audience who will be able to weigh in. But I think it's to get this homeowner kind of an answer to be able to move forward either way. And with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions, and I will leave it at that.
I think it might be helpful to clarify for us and for the general public what from their scope is in our purview.
So, good questions. So we are gonna, what is here? We've got the decks, the upper and lower decks, and it's really, and we have new kind of a different configuration of the upper and lower decks. There is an approved modification in the eastern interior setback. So that's kind of already been decided. The concentration is the upper story deck as well as the lower story deck. And I would say, just to kind of see how it, collectively, how does this look together? And then with emphasis on that western edge, just because that's where the substantial conformance determination is. And there used to be, the applicant will be able to show you kind of the difference of what was approved. But essentially everything, we're really just concentrating on decking. That's kind of the simple answer. But again, everything else is vested in a prior planning approval.
All right, thank you. So welcome. If you can make sure your microphones are on and each state your name for the record, and then you'll have 15 minutes to present.
Okay, well, I'm Jan Hockhauser of Hockhauser Blatter Architects and Planners, and I'm the architect hoping to deal with the cacophony and history of this to make it clear to this board. And I'll let these associates that represent the owner speak as well. Right here, right here.
Thank you. Janet McGinnis.
Yes, and hello. Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Eric Berg, and with the board's permission, I'd like to begin. I am legal counsel for the applicant, along with my co-counsel, Ms. McGinnis. And since the mascots were last here in front of the board in June of 2023, they retained Mr. Hockhauser to present a new, very specific proposal. Our new project is consistent with zoning, building codes, design guidelines. It's sensitive to privacy, it's cohesive, and it is compatible with the neighborhood. At all times while working up this new proposal, we gave full attention to this board's concerns as it expressed back in June of 2023. We're here today for both the preliminary design approval and final approval. We're not presenting general concepts. These are plans ready for final approval. We're eligible because the plan shows specific details, materials, setbacks, all relevant elevations, and screening to mitigate privacy concerns. We also submitted a drone video presentation showing how this upper deck is compatible with the neighborhood in terms of size, visibility, and conformity. Mr. Hockhauser will walk us through that shortly. The Brinkmans, the westerly neighbors, previously raised privacy concerns to the decks and to the spiral staircase. This new project addresses all of their objections by removing the staircase and adding two 6-foot-tall screening walls for the western ends of the lower and the upper decks. We also heard the Brickmans' prior due process and inadequate notice complaints, and in response to that, we personally delivered a set of final plans to them with an invitation to reach out with any questions. For the southern neighbors, we have added a screening trellis, and they support this project. Our current proposal is attentive to neighbors and meets the Good Neighbor Guidelines. We've submitted also for your consideration a petition signed by 29 neighbors, including the easterly adjacent neighbors and the southerly adjacent neighbors who had previously objected to this project. And I'd like to hand this off briefly to Ms. McGinnis for a few comments.
What we got for time? I think I'll hold up. I'm here to answer questions about the propriety of being here, the question of why are we here. I think I'll let Mr. Hockhauser tell you about the project.
Try to go quick and
Save a minute or two.
Okay, so I'd like to bear quickly down on the scope here so we're all really clear about what the scope being proposed. So this is to basically permit the second floor deck that exists now. It existed when these clients bought the house. There's been a lot of confusion about that. We're upgrading the guardrail system for the decks, both the upper and the lower, to bring some consistency into the design work. We're eliminating the existing spiral staircase as part of this proposal. We're adding in a green wall lattice below the understory of the lower deck to help mitigate aesthetics. We're replacing the existing stair. We're basically refurbishing the existing stair that goes from the lower deck down to the grade. And as staff just pointed out, they verified the consistency of that with the previous modification for the landing of that stair within the setback. And it's actually a better setback than it was before. And then an important feature that's also being proposed with this design is the screening elements, the lattice privacy elements that occur on the western end of both decks to help the good neighbor policies and mitigate the privacy concerns of the neighbor. And finally, an element that was approved in the prior PLN was a replacement of the existing window on the east side of the solarium that came about with the modification of the deck that encroached over the setback line on that east side. So that reduction of the deck on the east side was something that was approved and that we intend to do with this submittal, so there's no change there. So that's the scope of the work. And then I want to go to the methodology. Because of all the historical confusion around this, we went to the trouble of hiring a surveyor to undertake a laser scanning of the property. So they created a very detailed point cloud that burnished in reality details the form and mass of the house. That enables us to create very accurate drawings, elevations, and sections through the site, but it gave all the specific detail about what was there. And that became a very good tool to incorporate into the design work and the drawings before you today. And then in addition to that, we went to the trouble of hiring a videographer who used a drone from both a macro and a micro standpoint to convey to this board what's the context and what do you really see. So I'd like to go to that now. I think that's an important part of the presentation. And you can see here it is. The subject house is the one right in the middle of the screen at the bottom. That upper deck with the little table and lounge is the subject deck. And you can see the adjacent properties and their decks. And as we zoom out, you can see the context. So I'm going to kind of accelerate this. Well, it's a short video, so I'll let you enjoy it. And again, I want to reiterate that in my view, after studying all this material, there is nothing unusual about this item of this hearing. It's completely contextual, and it exists throughout the Riviera on so many homes and instances. You can see the levels, elevation, height of the adjacent decks left and right. A rather large one over to the right there. And then as you zoom out, I think it's also important to place this specific property visually in the context. I don't believe there's anything at all in our presentation or in our proposal that would indicate public view issues or, standing out of place. We go all the way over to the high school field, and you can see how the deck almost disappears, the house itself just into the grain of this Riviera context. So I'm going to end this now. We can come back to it if the board so desires. But
I recommend minimizing instead of exiting. Okay,
It's okay, here, let me.
you've got everything?
Yeah, let me,
Okay.
I can bring up the plans again for you.
it's this upper left one.
Oh, shoot. I thought I was gonna make this easier, and I am not making it easier. Let's see.
You just had it right there.
Yep, there we go. Okay.
Okay, so, this is the site plan, and you can see here the setback lines in the dash lines, the property lines in red to the east and west here. I might point out that this is a public trail easement that's neither privately owned by the west or the subject property. And then here's a aerial view, a Google map, and then these are micro photographs from within the property. There's significant vegetation in the foreground that screens this deck, and actually on both east and west sides of it as well. And then these are the drawings that I think created a lot of confusion, and so my initial recommendation was to bring a lot of clarity to this with the drone video and the laser scanning, because I think the board said, we're confused. What is exactly going on here? So these are included in the set just for the edification of the SFDB. Now, this is the main level of the house, the main deck level.
Plan A21?
Yeah, Plan A21. And you can see on the left the west property line, the 10-foot setback. The angle of this property line might be slightly off, so I think we're talking about verifying this, but it's a matter of inches, whether it's on that line or not. And you can see the landing of this stair, the refurbished stair. The landing is within the setback, so that's what was confirmed, but in substantial conformity. And then on the right here, on the east, you can see where the deck was removed per the prior approvals. And this is the subject window, which is included as part of this presentation. And here's the staircase in red that's being proposed to be deleted and removed. And then the next drawing, which is A2.2, shows the plan of the upper deck. And I'll repeat this continually to this board, that the side yard setbacks and distances from the property line exceed those recommended in the SFDB guidelines by a lot. And this is the lower level, the grade level, and you can see the bottom of the stair I was just describing. And then in here below the support structure of the deck are the lattice structure, so vines can grow up under the understory of that deck. And this is just the roof plan. I'm going to go quick. Here's the final elevation illustrating the refined guardrail system. We eliminated a non-compliant cable guardrail system. And you can see the slatted wood lattice on the new staircase going down. And on the side of the west side of this upper deck, this is that lattice screen, privacy screen element, and you can see it again here. It's called that as item 6 on this elevation.
That's Plan A3.1?
Yes, that's Plan A3.1. And then in this drawing, A3.2, the west and east elevations, here's the stair going to grade. You can see the improved guardrail system on the deck, and beyond, through the deck on the west side, you see the screening elements, which are a board, natural stain board timbers, slatted and spaced. This is the east elevation. And then this drawing right here, I think, is a very important one. We're looking at drawing A4.1, and this is a transverse section from Farello Road through the site to the southerly property line. The vegetation per the laser scan is shown here. The red spiral staircase is what's being removed, and you can see the relative extent of those decks, the screen wall elements beyond, and the stair through that. And then as you come here, this is a lateral section, and I'd like to point out that this is looking out towards the ocean, so don't get confused. The west here is to the right, the east is to the left, so we're almost standing in these decks, looking through them and out, and you could see the substantial setbacks of the subject deck on the upper story and the screen elements that screen the neighbor to the west, and you can also see the trail easement that separates the two property, which is significantly overgrown, by the way.
And the tree.
And then here is,
Tree, too, is shown.
yeah, I'm asked to be pointing out the existing avocado tree that's to the west of the deck as well, to introduce privacy and screening. That exists, by the way. And then here, as a result of the latest laser scan and a Revit modeling of such, you can see the proposed final deck with the new guardrail systems, the upper deck, the lattice element, the screening elements on the west end of the deck, and the lattice screened refurbished stair down to grade. And then finally, we carefully detail all elements that are being proposed in the scope here. This is the refurbished stair and the details of such section through the stringers and the guardrails. Here's the plan view of that deck. The next sheet shows the new window on the solarium and the detailing of the head jamb and sill. The detail up here to the right is the proposed guardrail system, and this is the lattice element and the hardware to provide for the cabling of the railing system.
You have about a minute
And-
left.
I'm sorry?
You have about a minute left.
I'm almost there. I don't think I need it. I don't think I need it. So
Well, you save it for.
I'll save it then. Thank you.
All right, thank
Say
you.
it's your time.
We'll move now to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do have slips for this particular project, so I would like to call up first Mr. Rick Clausen. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members. I think we all wish Councilman Friedman a speedy recovery. I was amused a little bit when Ms. Kokinda announced that it was unexpected heart attack. Most of them are. In my written comments that you've already received, I laid out my best objective arguments on this item, which I now recognize and regret misstated the number of unpermitted balconies. Now I will offer my purely subjective opinions. In this case, the applicant, these owners, are the ugly reason permitting and design review systems get bad reputations. This is an enforcement case that has dragged on for 8 years, compounding the city's costs of your meeting time, staff time, plus inspectors and reviewers and other times in other departments. This case and others like it slow the process down, and many honest people rightly complain. Even people like these applicants complain and never see that they are part of the problem. These cases and people are the poster children for bad behavior, and they make the system inefficient and costly. They are ugly Santa Barbarans, and their architect is complicit. Their mantra is hooray for me and to hell with everybody else, but they should be, rest assured, there is a special place in hell reserved for them too. This is very Trumpian, to delay, not comply, complain, appeal, and delay more, always hoping to wear the opposition down. Their attempt to manipulate an otherwise orderly process that over decades has led to an architectural Santa Barbara that many people, including them, want to live in is just plain disgusting. Thank you, board members, for your volunteer work, and have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind stating your address for the record?
Yes.
Thank you.
I live in Councilmember Friedman's district. I'm in San Roque. I live at 3308 Calle Fresno. And I believe that was on the cover email that, under which or with which I attached the letter that you saw.
All right, thank you.
Next, we'll have Rose Wills. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, single-family design board members. My name is Rose Wills. I live at 1265 Farella Road. I was appalled when I read some of the disparaging, baseless public comments about the Brinkmans. They have been good neighbors for the last 12 years. Emma Brinkman is fully vested in our community. She's a vice president of the Pearl Chase Society, serves on the board of the Music Academy of the West, is an accomplished botanist, was instrumental in saving the landmark Italian stone pines on Anapamu Street. James Brinkman is Secretary of New Directions Travel, serving individuals with disabilities locally and nationwide. They work hard for the common good of this community. At issue is 1257 Farella Road, which is an enforcement case in the Superior Court of Santa Barbara. On July 9th, 2020, the current owners were issued a citation by the city to correct several building code violations. They did not comply. They were issued another notice of administrative citation, second offense, on September 9th, 2022. Because of their refusal to abate the violations, the city prosecutor filed a misdemeanor complaint, and the Muscards were charged with a misdemeanor. In 2017, the Single Family Design Board stated that 1257 Farella Road should remove the upper deck and replace it with a Juliet balcony, as proposed by the homeowners. The owners were issued a permit but did not build the balcony. The Single Family Design Board decision of replacing the current deck with a Juliet balcony seems appropriate and compatible with the design of the house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Emma Brinkman. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
If this could go on the camera.
CCTV, if you can put up on the screen,
Don't have a copy of that.
that's what's going to be on the screen, and they'll issue it afterward.
Just before you start public comment, because I would like to have the speaker have an eye on the timer. I'm just going to move my screen so you can see it.
Thank you.
Oh, I get it.
But I'd like to as well, if that's.
Yeah, so
You'll just keep in mind and you'll speak out about it?
you can
Okay,
give
thank
we'll
you.
give a signal. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You're going to tell me when to start?
Yes, please. Go.
Okay. I'm Emma Brinkman, and I reside at 1261 Farella Road, the property directly west of this project. In 2017, the homeowners proposed the Juliet balcony to the SFDB for approval. I made positive comments regarding the approved Juliet balcony at the April 2017 SFDB consent meeting. My comments can be found in the minutes for that meeting. The SFDB is a design board, so let's talk design. Let's take a good look at the third story. It currently has 2 balconies, one located on the north elevation, the other on the easterly side of the south elevation. Both are recessed and fully integrated into the structure. The image I brought this afternoon shows the third floor cantilevered out over the second floor, a distance of about 3 feet. Attaching a deck to a cantilevered facade results in an exaggerated projection. This is awkward at best and comes off as an afterthought and not an integrated design. The approved Juliet balcony would minimize the awkward projection. From the second floor deck and looking up, the balcony appears set back, a more integrated and pleasing aesthetic. Perhaps this is why the 2017 board approved the Juliet balcony and disallowed the deck. The balcony would also allow the third floor French doors to remain. In addition to the existing north and south balconies, the Juliet balcony would create 3 points of exterior access on the third floor. This would be sufficient for the homeowner. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And lastly, we'll have Christine Newhouser.
Give that to staff.
Hi. Hello. Are you ready? I'm Christine Newhouser. I live at 936 East Cannon Perdido. I'm here in support of Emma and Jim Brinkman.
Sorry, if everyone can stop talking so we can hear the public comment. Thank you.
Again, I'm here in support of Emma and Jim Brinkman of 1261 Farello Road, specifically in response to the character assassination that is documented as public comment and attached to item 1 of 1257 Farello Road, basically a request for non-permitted work to be permitted as is. I've known the Brinkmans for over 15 years from when they lived in Montecito. They live as everyone would aspire to live. Everything is neat, orderly, and well-maintained. I serve on the Pearl Chase Society with Emma, and she is working alongside of her. She's hardworking, she's thorough, thoughtful, she's no nonsense. And I've witnessed her dedication and fortitude working on projects that benefit not her, but the good of the whole of Santa Barbara, talking about, for instance, the Doremus pine trees on Anapamu. The assertion made in the public comment letter that Emma would enter the applicant's house and went to every corner with burning sage is ridiculous. The Brinkmans, as you can see, are not of the new age, crystal-toting, sage-burning kind of people. They do play by the rules, and they have the expectation for everyone else to do the same. The fact is, all of the above is hearsay and has no bearing on the issue. The issue is that the owners of 1257 Farello Road abide by what the city told them to fix 8 years ago. It doesn't matter what the other neighbors think. All that matters is what the city has ordered the Maskerts to do, which they've ignored despite receiving multiple citations. I implore you to not reward bad behavior. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I do not have any further, one more slip. Okay, Mr. Brinkman, please approach the podium. You'll have 2 minutes.
Absolutely. Chair and members, my name is Jim Brinkman. I reside at 1261 Farello Road. I'm taking this opportunity to discuss an email which I had written, but that someone else had submitted as public comment. It is customary when we purchase a property, especially in an older neighborhood such as the one we're in now, to have our property line shot. The lot at 1257 Farello and our lots are not contiguous. A 6-foot public paseo divides our 2 lots. This was an unexpected find, having done the survey. Since the existing fence was not on the property line, we made the decision to remove it. We conferred with Don Ireland, not Ireland, I don't know if anybody remembers his name, who actually works for the city at the time. We conferred with Don. He was a staff member of the real estate division for the city of Santa Barbara. Mr. Ireland encouraged us to replace the hedge removed by the previous owner. Currently, there are no existing hedges between our properties. I'm sorry, fences. I said hedges. No existing fences between our properties. And to note, all of the paseos in our neighborhood are currently planted with hedges and have been for decades as a solution to the issue of the unrelinquished land known as a paseo. It's not an easement. Actually, that one is an easement, Counselor, but the others are all paseos. There are no easements available, and they're all filled in with hedges. During the COVID, the homeowners of 1257 Farello Road began converting their carport into a garage. We contacted the building department to see if permits had been issued, and we were told they had not. To avoid additional violations on the property, we contacted code enforcement. Since this was during COVID, Lauren Anderson, code enforcement officer at the time, requested, she wasn't going to send staff, so if we would politely get some images of the building materials, such as the pre-purchased windows that were not to code because they were plastic coated for fire safety. And anyway, it was a carport, not a garage, and shouldn't have been converted without any kind of a permit. And it sits well into the setback.
All right, thank you, sir.
Am I time up?
Time.
Okay, all right. Well, there was more to talk about, but thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude
Is this an
this.
appropriate time to use my minute? Oh,
No,
I don't have it. Okay.
we're continuing with public comment. At this time, that closes the in-person public comment. I'm going to turn my attention to virtual comment. And at this time, I do not see any hands raised for virtual comment. And we did receive several letters written for this particular project. We received one from Beth Katz, Tammy Lamel, Ben and Margaret Chavarez, Stephanie Moray, Janet McGinnis, James and Emma Brickman, Rick Clausen, A.M. Marzola, and Rose Wills. And at that, I will turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
All right, thank you. Now, if you'd like to put 1 minute on the clock, I'd like to give them their minute back for,
Can I get my screen engaged, Sebastian? Okay. Awesome.
thank you.
Okay.
It's up on the top,
So,
yeah.
you know, I feel sad that there's so much upset over this case, but I think this is the best exhibit that we could present to this board, because it really does show the context. And the Mascarts, in spite of all the acrimony going back and forth, their second floor deck, compared to all the other decks, second floor decks throughout the neighborhood, there's nothing unique. It's well screened. Many homes all around and in immediate proximity to this enjoy larger decks that have the same aspect and are actually closer to adjacent property lines. The other thing that's really noteworthy here is the profundity of all the vegetation in this photograph. I don't know that the hedges or anything's been removed since this has been taken, but I think this exhibit says it all in terms of context and equal enjoyment, and the SFDB guidelines in terms of screening and proximity. So I think that's all I have to say with my minute here. So.
All right, thank you. The board will move to questions. Board Member Mosley, do you want to start?
Yeah, can start. Can you show us that avocado tree on the plan? I saw it on a section elevation.
Yeah, here, let me,
Is that A4, I think?
Yeah, let me just get that open right here. If you, it's open, I'm good. Got it. Perfect. Okay.
I think it's
So that avocado tree is represented in the section.
Mr. Hockhauser, can you turn your microphone on again, please?
There you go. Sorry about that. So that avocado tree is represented here on the section looking south over the city just to the east of the deck. And on the plan view, it's indicated right here.
So it's adjacent to the proposed screening
Correct.
wall of like second story balcony.
Well,
First story.
yeah, the first story deck's right here. That's the west edge of the first story deck, and here's the west edge of the upper story deck.
Okay. And can you tell us, on the east side, there's a new bifold window door proposed. What was it before?
Well, it used to go out to the deck. That is being proposed to be cut back. So if I go to my first floor exhibit on drawing, give me a second here to scroll to it. But you can see right here, the previous approvals included the removal of this shaded portion of the deck to bring it closer back to the setback line. And there used to be a door that went out here. So with the removal of that deck, we had to revise that window.
Okay. Thank you. That was my questions.
Board Member Graffiti?
I'm going to.
Okay, I have a few questions here. So, again, going back to landscaping, well, one, can you speak to, I got a little bit confused during public comment. Is there an existing hedge along the westerly neighbor property line, or what exactly is happening there? I know that a little bit further in, there's that avocado tree, but on that property line where we're talking about that 6-foot easement, what is happening there?
Yeah, there's substantial existing vegetation, and in this image right here, this is the Google Earth view. This is the subject house. This
Right.
is that West Paseo Trail, and you can see, the density of vegetation there. There is a hedge. There's also some trees and other vegetation there.
Okay. And then for all of the vegetation on the south of the property in front of the 2 decks, is that proposed to be maintained? Is there anything new being added? I know we talked about lattice and vines under the decks. Can you speak to what's happening there?
Yeah, so that's the only proposed added vegetation is the vine at the base of the deck. And in this drawing here on the bottom of A2.2,
Okay.
that cable trellising occurs between the supports, and a trumpet vine is proposed to grow up that trellis.
Okay, great. Actually, I know that this is a completely separate plan, but can we still bring up minutes from our last meeting just to quickly glance through, or would you
We
not
have-
recommend that?
We have the minutes, and it was.
I see it on the
Yeah, it's on the
tab,
third
but I
tab.
want to make sure
I
that.
just want to acknowledge that
Yeah.
it was originally scheduled as a review after final, but
Right.
the reason is that we did not want to jeopardize the approved plans are for a Juliet balcony and the
correct.
spiral staircase.
Yes.
And this is essentially a new concept for the rear
Okay.
decking.
I just wasn't sure if there were elements that could be related to this, that, for example, material palettes or comments of that nature that would be appropriate to just look over, but.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely.
don't wanna
I
waste
will,
time
if I may,
either.
Chair Lewis and Board Member Graffiti, if there's something with the modification and that approval,
Right.
I'll interject to let
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
So if you can go to the 3rd tab where it says old minutes.
Yeah, so if you
At
go
the top of the
at the
screen.
very top of the screen,
Oh,
if you take your
sure, I
mouse
see it.
and then
I got it.
yeah, click that. There you go, and then scroll down to the address.
And again, for context, this was with a different agent, and the
Yes.
plans that were submitted were, they weren't really substantial enough
Yep.
to really give the full picture. So there
That's
was.
okay. So we'll just, for time's sake, we wanted to see the material details, connections, finishes, and colors and
house.
components. So you can go back to your drawing set.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And I know that I saw the materials board for the proposed decks and screening elements. Is there any proposed changes to the color of the house? I know that was something
So
brought up.
I did want to speak to that, and
Okay.
I neglected to bring it up. But while we're not proposing to repaint the body of the house, we did think it would be helpful to change the color of the trim from the white to kind of soften the whole aspect of it in the context.
Okay.
So you've got white guttering and trim, which we're proposing to paint the dark brown color that you see in this drawing.
Okay, and then my last question is, for those screening elements, the 6 feet high, I think it's on the western side of both the first and second story deck, is that intention just for privacy? Can you kind of walk me through?
The thinking behind that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, given the history of conflict here between the neighbors, we just thought that would be a great, good neighbor gesture. We debated it internally, and we thought, let's put up a nice, warm, wooden lattice fence element so that when they're on their deck, it's not an imposition both ways. So when they're in their yard looking up, or when they're on their deck looking down, it just adds to that separation.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Board Member Sherry?
Yeah, a couple questions. Did you include the original plans as hand sketches because that was the original deck when the house was built? Is that why that was included? Or what, the question really is, what was the original design of the house when it was built? What were the decks?
As you see them.
The original design of the house?
Yeah, well, for 20 years since they purchased the house, that's the only history I know.
Originally approved.
So, Don, Board Member Sherry, if you go to the hand sketch is what was approved in 2016 by SFDB. It was not built that way, which is why they went through this whole
And
thing.
that's the one that has the
The
Juliet
homeowners
balcony.
purchased the house as is and how it's photographed, but it never was built with a Juliet balcony.
Right, so my question is, what year was the house built?
1936.
So what was the original design of the decks?
I don't have a record of that, and I don't think this applicant presentation has a record of that at this moment. We've kind of been comparing of what was approved under the 2016 PLN to now.
Okay, I asked it because I think it would be really good to know if anybody had that information.
Yeah, all I could
Nobody
say,
does.
Board Member Sherry, is that the applicants really desire to have the deck as they purchased the house, and that's why we've gone through this
Yeah, I
exercise.
know, I understand that. My question was, does anybody know the design of the original deck? Nobody does.
Well, someone in the audience has their hand raised. Staff, are we allowed to get
You
their answer?
you are allowed to do that as chair.
If you'd like
but
to come up and just state, just for Board Member Sherry.
I just want to acknowledge that we may or may not have the original plans, and I can't answer that question
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
I have lived in this neighborhood for 50 years. The original house had no decks. It was single story.
So when the second story came in, is that when the decks, or the second story came in and the decks later?
There were not multiple decks. All of those decks were built by a former owner before the Mass Guards.
Got it. Okay.
And she did not bother to get permits
Okay.
for any of it.
That's helpful. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, Board Member
Okay,
Sherry,
never
any
mind.
other questions?
Yeah. Are we looking at the color today? It's not on our agenda.
I would say the color and the materials of the decking.
Only the decking is in our
Only
scope
the
today.
decking. The
Correct.
color of the
Mhm.
house is not in our
Correct.
purview.
Mhm.
And somebody in the public said that it was a cantilever deck. It's not a cantilever deck.
No, the statement was that the second floor cantilevers, and so the deck extends
Okay,
past
yeah.
that cantilever.
And, okay, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. And then my only question, you have called it a trellis, but it's
Lattice?
a lattice work, but it's not cross lattice.
Well, it's not
just
quite, it's
pushed-
just a vertical
Okay.
spaceboard lattice, so like alternating 2x4 and 1x4 and 1x6 boards with a 3/4 inch gap between the boards,
Okay, okay,
and an angle iron steel frame.
got it. Okay, we'll move to comments. Board Member Graffiti. Okay, Board Member Mosley.
Okay, can we go to the sheet A 3.1 where you have the materials key?
Yes.
Can you quickly walk us through what was the decision, like design, intention behind like multiple colors of the browns and
Well, so there
grays?
are two elements to this in terms of the decking itself and the timber work, the posts and beams, so there's staying elements for that. And then there's the ironwork that captures the railing system. So that's spelled out as the specific color there. I need to zoom in a little
Oh, and
bit.
as you zoom in, Board Member Sherry, I think I was wrong, because it's in their drawings, the color of the revision for the gutters and the metalwork are part of this scope, just not the field color.
Yeah, so the field color was not something that, for many reasons, was decided as a proposed change. But we did find, and I advised that the white trim was kind of allowed differentiation, so going to a different color for the gutter work would seem a natural thing to soften that. And so the other colors are kind of obvious as to what they're for in the given scope of work. And, I would petition the board to see that they are warm, natural colors, contextual with the surrounding environment, so.
And just to clarify, these are all new colors.
These correct,
They're
these are
not
all the new
existing.
colors.
Okay, So I'm gonna jump to the
Neighboring comments,
fence idea. I think as a design, when we looked at the video, adding the privacy fence, it makes the upper level deck bolder. It's just like from the topography, I know that like it's the purpose of it is like privacy, but the way that it's designed and the way that it's proposed, it makes it bolder. It will provide privacy, but it will make the deck more visible from the public. That's my opinion. And whether there are other ways of providing that privacy with having like landscaping on the deck, that's an option. We're not here to propose any design, but I'm just saying that adding that on the second level, make it more visible and soar to the eye from the public view. The lower level, the first level, I don't think with the avocado tree, existing avocado tree, and when I'm looking at the Google Earth, like the hedge, the existing hedge, I don't think it's necessary. But I am not seeing like an image from the neighbor or that easement way that shows that from like a human height, like eye level, that how does it look like? If you have a picture and I'm missing it, please go to that, but I couldn't like find an image if we're standing in that easement and looking towards the first level
I think
deck.
what would be useful, perhaps, this might be telling.
Yeah. So, yeah, in general.
You can see,
Sorry,
you
if
can
we
see
can leave
that.
this to comments from the board, just for sake of time.
I don't think that first level screening is necessary with that height. Given having the avocado tree stay there and all the hedges, it can even like if there's like a little bit of like privacy issue, it can be proposing more landscape to soften that. In general, I think that's this addition, disregarding all the like the deck issue, adding that fencing is the fence. It's make it more bulkier from the public view. That's my thoughts.
All right. Board Member Sherry?
So the question here is, would we approve this deck if it had not been built yet?
Correct.
And so that being said, I think the deck is appropriate. I think it's appropriately designed. I think that the size of the upper level deck, having the posts coming down and creating the covered area on the main level is an appropriate design, and I think I would have approved this even if it had not been previously built. And visibility is always going to be an issue when houses are built next to each other. Privacy, whether it's from windows or balconies, is always going to be an issue in neighborhoods. And I also agree with Board Member Mosley that if you want the privacy screen, I think that I could approve it just because of the sensitivity of the neighbor, but I think it's adding to that bulk, and I prefer the design without the privacy screen.
Okay, I agree with a lot of what's been said already. I think because of the existing vegetation, both on the south and west side, it helps a lot. And the deck is small in nature and pulled away from the sides or the bordering property lines. I think the 6-foot tall screening wall stands out a lot. And I think it would be nicer towards the neighbor. I'm not going to speak for the neighbor, but if you had something that was more of a planter or small patio tree or something else solving that problem, that would be nicer to look at than just a tall wall. But if that would be preferable from the neighbor's perspective, I'm open to different ideas. I just think from the public perspective, viewing the deck back up to the hillside, that stands out more. I actually think and again, this is out of purview, I don't know if there was a permit pulled for the exterior color of the house or not, but I think that actually sticks out a lot more than the existing deck does. So, yeah, but that's out of our purview, so I will hold my comments for that. In general, though, I do think just the size of the deck, where it's sited, is appropriate, and it's unfortunate that there's been so much back and forth and, you know, all of the legal components of this, but I'm just looking at it as if I would find it acceptable without all of that.
Yeah, I think the adjustment from the last time that we saw it of removing the spiral stair helps, both in appearance, but also, I mean, a Juliet balcony, someone might, you know, from that room come out and just use it. They're not partying up and down, and you've effectively kept that same use by removing that stair. And I think, you know, this is a great shot, even though I don't want everyone to have to go out and do drone footage of their neighborhood, but it shows very clearly that the second-story balcony is significantly smaller than the neighbors and the neighborhood, and it's an appropriate size, and that the first floor balcony is essentially at grade if it would have been for the neighbors, and instead it just keeps stepping down. But I agree with the other board members that I don't think that the privacy screening is appropriate. The height of it feels really tall regardless. I think if we putting in a condition opening it up to just align with the other railing but be solid there, but having this tall 6-foot thing stick next to it feels out of design. Otherwise, and so I'd want to either approve it with conditions that it can either match the surrounding railing or be lowered to match the height. Any opposition from the board? Okay, then I move to approve this project for project design approval and final approval. With the following comments. Can I have the screen up? The proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. The proposed development is compatible with the neighborhood, and its size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the site and neighborhood as amended with the, and maybe this should be the first comment, that it's approved with conditions that the item 6, the wood slat screening, be lowered to match the height of the guardrail or be replaced to match the guardrail at both the first and second stories. Okay. That the size of the balconies are appropriate to the neighborhood. The proposed buildings and structures are designed with quality architectural details. The proposed materials and colors maintain the natural appearance of the ridgeline or hillside, including the proposed colors to the fascia gutters and post and beams. No trees are to be removed. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. The project generally complies with the Good Neighbor Guidelines regarding privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting. Given the scale of the the second story balcony, and the significant distance from the property line. The development, including proposed structures and grading, preserves significant public scenic views of and from the hillside. The development, including the proposed structures and grading, is appropriate to the site, is designed to avoid visible scarring, and does not significantly modify the natural topography of the site or the natural appearance of any ridgeline or hillside. The development maintains a scale and form that blends with the hillside by minimizing the visual appearance of the structures and the overall height of the structures. The balcony is designed with minimal details on the railings that blend into the building and the ridge line.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry,
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslahi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you.
And,
Staff has a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to announce that that does start the 10-day appeal process. So if staff doesn't receive anything within the next 10 calendar days, you guys are free to submit to Building and Safety. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you,
All
everybody.
right, thank you. Our next item is a continued item here for project design and final approval, 2200 Carlton Way, demolition of the existing 1,403 square foot residence and construction of a two-story, 2,228 square foot residence with an attached 353 square foot junior accessory dwelling unit on a 6,948 square foot lot in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. The staff hearing officer for modifications granted relief from the open yard and front setback zoning standards and approved a coastal development permit for the proposed JADU on February 2nd, 2025. The JADU is exempt from design review. However, the new two-story house requires review by the Single Family Design Board. The proposed two-story house qualifies for a coastal exclusion. PDA and final are requested. The project was last heard January 13th. Any staff comments to start us?
Good afternoon, Kelly Bradison with Community Development. As you stated, this project was the project was approved last Wednesday at the staff hearing officer. Received two zoning modifications, as you stated. One for setbacks in the front yard, because it was basically in the same footprint as the existing structure. And it also received a open yard mod to provide a little bit less than the required amount of open yard and also not meet the minimum dimensions because the lot is considered constrained with the siting of the existing building, two large front setbacks, and also a sewer easement that runs along the west side of the property. So those two zoning modifications were approved. So the applicant is here today requesting project design approval and final approval if the board sees it's appropriate.
Okay, you'll have 15 minutes to present. If you can reference the old minutes, which are the third tab.
Yeah, I have it
Oh,
right here.
perfect.
Perfect. Hello, my name is Sean Lynch with Evoke Design. This is Robert Richards, a landscape architect. I'll just start by reviewing the minutes, and then I can go through the items and then touch on anything you'd like to discuss. So, item 1, the board is in support of the size, bulk, and scale of the project. 2, the board appreciates the constraints of the property. 3, the board is in support of the material palette and looks forward to seeing in project design approval the scope of plaster versus wood versus stone and concrete. Item 4, the board recommends studying the rear stair massing and options to help break it up and or introduce natural light into the stairwell or add potential landscaping that will soften the north stairwell wall. The board would like to see adjustments to the windows above the garage as it's quite close to the ridge and recommends studying the style of the window in relation to the rest of the house. The board recommends studying the detailing of the different balconies and roof structure awnings for cohesiveness. The board is in support of the requested modifications, and then the board does not have an aesthetic reason not to grant these modifications. So as our planner mentioned, we received our staff hearing officer approval last week, and so now we're proceeding with kind of our PDA final. And as mentioned, this is our third time to you guys. The first time was for positive comments where the neighbor came out and we adjusted some items. Second, we got positive comments, went to staff hearing officer, and then here we are now. So this is the third time. Just going through, I'll kind of start with each item. I'll start at the second story window that was discussed. We actually removed, there was sort of a collar around the window. So we actually removed that, and what we did is we actually, let me go to the second floor plan. We actually thickened up this wall to create some more dimension and and set the window back so it just has a little bit more scale. So we actually removed that collar altogether and just created a nice thick opening to create that mass there. And let me go to the elevation to give you an idea. Oops. Whoa. Where did that? Yeah. Okay. Last one. And this one didn't come out in color for some reason. So this is that window there. So what we actually did is, as I said, we removed the collar around it and just recessed it into a thicker window, and then the same metal trellis that is in this lower level on each side, this primary patio, as well as here. So they're all consistent throughout. There'll be wide flange beams infilled with wood and then tube steel posts. So we tried to make all that very consistent. And part of what we had to do working through our modifications was to reduce the size of the patios awnings. It could only encroach 2 feet into the open yard. So let me go to it. This one had extended previously a little further out, so it was reduced to 2 feet. And then on this elevation as well, we reduced it to 2 feet. And we actually had a larger patio here, and we actually pulled it back. So it's really just a landing and then steps down. And we just really wanted to maintain a lot more kind of green space since this is a constrained lot. And this really will be our sort of our primary yard area. The property doesn't have any sidewalks around it, so part of that is it will kind of maintain privacy. You won't have people walking right by it, so that was kind of our thought there. The stairway, I can go right here. So we kept it fairly similar. We did add a window, a higher window to provide light into it and to create a little bit more interest instead of just a blank wall. I can go to the second story, you can see it better in there. So as you see, it's just off to the side, so as you come down, you're not really looking into the neighbor's yard. So it's more of a strategic higher window. And then we have been in communication with the neighbor, Jim, and he responded to us. We sent him the plans, and we're actually going to provide additional screening along, higher screening right along this elevation too. So I just want to make sure to mention it. We'll get it in the minutes just to make sure that gets addressed. He's been great. We've been working with him, and he's happy with where this project's gone. And let me go to the elevation here for the stair tower. Let me see. And here you go. So we just did a kind of an upper window here. And then this mass also is strategic in a sense that these are the primary bedroom windows above the nightstands. This actually blocks views towards his deck, so it works to also screen and create privacy for his yard as well, because his house is essentially right. His deck is in line with this kind of section. If we had to draw that line there. In terms of the balconies, we still kept them in different detailing because they're different conditions. So let me find a good elevation to give you guys a sense. All right, here you go. So this balcony here it's wood with a top cap, and then we just have a piece of glass with a wood top cap on the top for the top guardrail. The deck off the master patio, the way that it intersects with the roof, we couldn't create that condition. So the reason we created this essentially a 3-foot tall solid here instead of just glass or have it come all the way up is he's still able to maintain views from the bed while creating privacy down to the street. So when you can't see the road, but you can still see kind of the tops. And then this, let me go to a section here to give you a sense of how it interacts with the roof and why. You kind of see it in these locations. There's another section here. Okay, here we go. As you can see here, the roof really comes right up to the edge. So it's sort of a different condition. It wants to be more private also. So we did keep it as is. We did provide top caps that would be consistent throughout the two rail types, but the one off of the inner courtyard does have a glass top. That's just about 12 inches. Beyond that, I think that addresses the majority. Oh, let me just go to the materiality here. So we did pull off almost all of the board form concrete. We wanted to go with more of a natural look. So what we did is it's really all vertical siding, tube steel with kind of a natural finish, galvanized half-round gutters and downspouts, and then we did clad the chimney in a sandstone, and same with the planters throughout the property. And any kind of site walls, as you can see here, we've cladded in stone just to kind of create that more natural feel. So we really got away from that board form concrete, as it didn't really kind of relate as we developed the drawings. And then here, let me just go to the material palette and all the specifications. And again, I can go over any details as we dig in. We have a fully vetted set. We have engineering, civil drawings, everything. So let me go down. Okay. Again, here, just, door, window details. Let me scroll out just to give you guys. Yeah, door, window details, fireplace details. There's the railing detail. And then here's just some perspectives, as you can see, the massing. And I'm happy to focus on any of these when it comes up. As you can see, the stone cladding throughout, lower little planter wall. In the setback, it could only be 10 inches, so it's just a low planter wall to create a little bit of interest as you walk in. Just some kind of interior views, and then here's really our palette. So we're going with a galvanized corrugated metal roof, the specification, which is slate gray, night sky compliant light fixtures, this kind of Santa Barbara sandstone, this vertical wood, which is an Akoya, which is a clear coat, and the specifications are there. We're going to go with kind of a concrete large format tile for interior and the decks, and then we're going to do Fleetwood exterior doors at nice slim profiles, and then zero sill clearance between the decks and the interior, and then just aluminum clad windows, Fleetwood as for the rest. So and then these are just our old iterations as we went through, but what I'll do is I'll let Robert kind of touch base on the landscape here. Oh, and sorry, just to mention, we will be going for PDA because, one, we don't have the fully developed landscape drawings. We are still finalizing our stormwater with creeks. So we submitted and they had additional comments. So we're essentially asking for PDA, and then obviously we'll come back with fully vetted irrigation, the whole landscape drawings. So go ahead, Robert.
Okay, so I kind of picked up this project after somebody else had developed a preliminary plan. So working with the owner, we wanted to accomplish a few goals. One was to kind of enhance the sense of entry into the front door. So we did that by, one, framing it with trees, and then trying to develop kind of a language with the paving, using a large landing right in front of the front door there. And then we're using these concrete steppers as a way to kind of maneuver around the property. So the entry has this quality of having a large landing that then, feeds outwards towards the driveway and to the, kind of the yard space that's at the corner of the property. Another goal of the owner was to kind of more efficiently use the open space that's there along Palisades. And so previously there was a larger patio that was at the level of the house. And so what we did was we kind of pulled back that, eliminated the patio in a sense, and just pulled back a little landing and then steps that come down to what is a lawn area there with 2 seating areas that are kind of at the corners. And so the owner's got a dog and expectant family and all the fun stuff, so he wanted to have more space to be able to enjoy the yard there. So around the that lawn area and the seating areas is kind of a perimeter with some shrubs and planting. And then we brought in trees as a way to try to soften the space there and kind of create a little bit of a buffer from Palisades. Another thing to describe here is that we introduced a planter there that kind of divides the patio space between what is a guest house, or not a guest house, but a guest room, and the living room space. So you kind of have a little bit of a private little nook there on the side corner of the property. let's see, I could kind of walk you through the planting if you want to go. So we're introducing some ideas for some trees, like olive trees, acacia stenophila, arbutus tree. I think the arbutus tree would be good, like in the plant or up against the house there. Then Sean was touching on the screening on the back of the property. So I think we're going to end up extending that a little bit. I guess that would be to the west there.
3 more north.
Yeah.
It's west, sorry, yeah.
So that's going to be extended to help kind of screen, based on requests from the neighbor there. But maybe zoom back over to the planting there. So I've got a selection of shrubs that are for buffering. So we've got like a row of shrubs that basically kind of go around Palisades and Carlton. That'll work with the fence to create a sense of, privacy as much as possible. Then going down there, we've got a planting that's for the pathways and patios. So this is kind of like an informal soft planting that is supposed to be kind of worked in around all of the paving there. Then we got some walkable ground covers. So the idea was there for that lawn space if you wanted to do kind of like a more drought tolerant type of planting. And then we've got some parkway plantings that are all kind of meeting the city's 8 inches or less requirements. So.
Perfect. So that pretty much wraps up our presentation. We do want to say, since we weren't able to get Creek's approval to possibly, if it's okay with the board and everything is kind of on par with getting final, would be possibly to come back at a consent level and then just get exact direction for what you guys would like to see, and then hopefully move this forward. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. We'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project. However, if anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so. So now I'll turn my attention to virtual attendance. And at this time, I do not have any hands raised for public comment via virtual attendance. And we did not receive any written correspondence for this particular item. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
Thank you. We'll start with questions from the board. Board Member Sherry.
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Board Member Graffiti.
I was just going to ask, I'm not super familiar with the roof material that you're using. I know we see like more of the standing seam metal roof. Can you cover just stylistically goes with the design intention, and is this commonly used for residential use and on the Mesa?
I think there's a few properties within the Mesa, but a lot throughout Montecito, back into it quite extensively throughout. Let me get you just a couple reference photos. It's just a different product that we really like. It's Galvalume typically, and so it'll kind of sort of patina over time. And it just is another kind of take on the kind of metal roof. So you can see there's the corrugated in these. This is really a reference image that we really kind of push towards with the stone. This kind of vertical, the corrugated and the vertical siding. Let's see if there's another one. Most of these are very similar. So, but yeah, so it's just sort of a design aesthetic. It meets all the requirements of just a normal metal roof.
Okay,
Yeah,
great,
thanks.
thank you. And then my only other question is the hedging material for the back, is the intention that it's the pittosporum silver sheen? It looked like it was just dedicated for an area, but I wanted to have an idea of the planting, that hedging, and maybe that cluster of shrubs.
And I'll just quickly touch. When we
Yeah.
did speak with Jim, the neighbor,
Yeah.
he essentially says, can we essentially extend that pittosporum over just to kind of break that mass up a little bit, visual mass? So
Right.
that would be the intent.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think either the pittosporum or the privet that I have on here would be the
Okay.
two that could get to that height.
Okay, so those are options that you're thinking?
Yeah,
for-
we're going to use the taller of the options over here, so it gets up tall, past the fence height.
Okay, and then the cluster of shrubs next to the stair, that's not meant to, nothing there is providing height, that's just a nice little planted area? Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I know that was a point from last time,
Yeah.
so I wanted to make sure we cover that. That's it for me.
Board Member Mosley.
I just have one question. The window that you added in the staircase, can you go to a section you have on A402?
Yeah, no problem.
I just want to know what was the intention, like the way that it was located and designed. Was it interior to exterior or reverse?
A4.
A402.
Yeah, oh, here we go.
Yeah. I'm seeing that it's centered with the skylight.
Yeah, so it's centered on, it's actually centered on the exterior of, it's centered on that, and then the window that's facing, I guess, the north is, as you come down, it's really meant to not visualize into his yard. It's really just to create kind of, as you walk down, you kind of see some nice blue, kind of green, and so.
How about the size of it, the proportion of it, the decision behind that? Why it's not like, for example, as an example, if you go to your elevation, north elevation, all the rectangular windows, like you have all the same. That's the only one that it's like small. Was it a specific reason?
So
designed that?
these windows, there's one on this side, one here, and then one on this side as well. They're all the same sizes. One, they kind of conflict. If you go bigger, they will conflict with the roof.
Understand.
Yeah,
From the other side, you have constraints.
Exactly. So from
it.
interior, they're all consistent. So it's really dictated by this roof here.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was my question.
The site wall, I'm looking at the south elevation at the front of the building. Most of that sandstone site wall will get covered with the little planter in front of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll switch to comments from the board. Board Member Sherry?
Yeah, just a couple. I would encourage you, as you've mentioned, that you're going to extend the hedge in front of the stairwell. I would prefer to see it,
Let me go to that.
if not the whole way along the north, then more than just the area. Oh, you don't even have it in front of the stairwell right now. I thought you said you were going to.
No, that's where,
Okay.
yeah, we're supposed
So
to, we're going to
I
extend
would
it.
encourage you to extend it more to the west, at least.
I'll-
So it's not just a section that's in front of that private patio and in front of the stairwell. And I would like to see not just a 5-gallon privet or pittosporum, something more substantial, like a taller, like a 15-gallon, more established on a wooden stake that can provide an instant privacy that doesn't take several, years, 5 years to grow up. And my only other comment is that a corrugated galvanized roof is not my first choice for this house, just based on your original concept of it being this kind of refined, contemporary, clean. I think that the galvanized kind of introduces a different, I was a little surprised that you were introducing it. I think it makes it into a different, it takes the design into a different place than I've always had this design in my head. I think that the standing seam metal roof is a cleaner look. I guess I generally associate a corrugated metal roof with like a more rural, agrarian type of architecture, but it's not enough for me to tell you I'm not going to support the project if you don't change it. So just my preference. And it kind of goes along with all your other visual imagery too. So I was surprised to see that. And those are my only comments.
Board Member Graffiti?
Okay. In general, I think it's a great project. Really excited to get this moving, and I support it for PDA and think it should go to consent after this. I agree with all of Vice Chair Sherry's recommendations about the hedge, pushing it out across the fence line. I think it could be odd if there's just like a little grouping, and I don't know, especially from the neighbor's perspective. And I agree 15 gallons seem appropriate, especially if it's shady. It might take longer for those to establish over there. And same comment about the roof. I could support it, but I think just given the direction you're going, especially with the sandstone and the warmer color, I think there could be other options that would look good. So those are my comments.
Board Member Mosley?
I also agree with all the comments that was made, and I think the project has been more muted and blended into the context when you minimize the materials and took out the concrete. And the windows are working really well, and proportionally everything is good. The only thing is that staircase window, and I understand the constraints, and I agree with board members' comments about having the landscape in front of it, that it's not like 10 years from now, so that it's not like a one point of the house that will be commented and like criticized from the neighborhood. And one thing I wanted to see again was the material palette board and the color of the screen above the trellis above the windows. What's the color of that?
So it'll be it's going to match the color of the window, so it'll be like a dark bronze, and then it will be it'll be infilled with wood, so like a 2x4 wood. It'll be infilled to kind of soften that heavy. Let me see.
Will it match the color of the boards of the
Yeah,
facade?
it'll be stained exactly. Hold on. So here we go. So where is that? Right down here. And I have details of it too. I can reference those details. So essentially, it'll be essentially this color, and then it'll be infilled with this wood, but along all the insets of the wide flange. Let me just quickly go to a detail just to show. And then just to quickly touch base on the hedge, it also, we can extend it, but then it gets to a point where it's between the two structures. His structure is 4 feet from the property line, so it's encroaching. So I don't think it'll have as much of an impact at that area, but we'll absolutely study that when we come back too. Let me quickly.
Well, yeah, I wanted to clarify, do you guys want to run the hedge towards Palisades as well? Were you asking
Maybe
for
we'll
all the
look
way
back at
along
the
the
site plan in a
property
second.
line?
Yeah, hold
I
on.
just want to make sure that we respond.
Yeah, let me go to, where is the detail? Anyways, it's the details are in here somewhere. Oh, there
That's
we go.
fine.
Yeah, here we go. You can see it in this one right here. Let me go. And then, as you can see, and then I'm pretty sure I call it out as stain grade. So it's a wide flange, you can see, and then there's the beam there, and that'll be stain grade. Oh yeah, stain grade slats here, even though it's pointing to the wrong area for some reason. But let me go to the
One
site
last
plan.
comment only, that I agree with board member Sherry about the corrugated metal. I'm worried that, I've seen this in this style of architecture kind of, but in larger lots, that it's like the building is like far away, but in the context of this neighborhood, which houses are really close to each other, the reflection of it, and that's a little bit like concerning. That's the only comment, but it's up to
Yeah,
you.
comments for the board, I'm curious, in the inspiration renderings and things like that, they're done in a much darker color than this lighter gray if it's corrugated. Is that something we'd be open to? Otherwise, because I agree, I think the light feels more industrial and feels more like what you might see in the funk zone or in a different style of architecture. But even your inspiration in some of your earlier renderings, it feels like it gets minimized a little bit when it goes darker, and same with that inspiration photo you showed. And so I'm curious from the board if it leans a darker corrugated. Is that something we're open to, or still recommend the standing metal seam, which would feel more appropriate in the neighborhood?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I wasn't even thinking about the color, but as soon as I started thinking about the galvanized finish, there's going to be some reflectivity there. I think it's going to be really hard to get a matte finish, which is what we would require even if we were to approve the corrugated metal. And I have to agree with the rest, with Chair Lewis about the color, because I've always visualized this standing seam dark metal roof, and now we're not only going really light, or it's being proposed as really light, but somewhat reflective, and or more light.
I mean, the reflectivity meets the requirements, so it's a 39% reflectivity. We could go darker. I mean, I feel like this is, a darker color that you do see on most standing seam metal houses. This has been done, I know Anacapa's done this previously. There's a project on Santa Rosa and Montecito that we work next to that has done it, and I personally disagree. I think it's refined. Backen does it almost exclusively with their properties, and those are $20 to $50 million properties. So again, it's a design aesthetic choice by our team. We're happy to change the color and review the color, but I don't think that this doesn't qualify as something that could be non-supportable. I mean, as long as we meet the reflectivity, we are happy to change it to a darker color, but this is something we've had on the plans for over 2 years or a year and a half. But again, we're happy to, get to a color that's everyone's happy, and that's not a problem at all.
I just don't remember seeing it on the last time we saw the plans.
I have all the iterations on
and
here.
To be fair, it doesn't entirely matter, but I want to know what the board's comments are now and where we stand.
Again, like I said before, I'm not going to
Here's our
not approve
previous
this
submittals.
project with it. I don't prefer it. If it was darker, I think I would definitely be able to support it, even though it still is
recommendation then is to say approved with the galvanized if it's in a darker color than slate gray or a standing seam.
Yeah.
Is the board in favor of that?
Yeah, and being matte. Because
And since since you're here only for preliminary, it would be nice to see a physical sample of it.
If possible.
Okay. Photo of it, is that the actual color in the photo?
That was the actual color from the,
There's a color next to it. Looks
yeah, this is,
darker than the photo.
yeah, this is the actual color from the website. So again, also it's, as how my printer and PDF printer does it. So, oops.
That's okay. We'll be on board comments for now. So Board Member Graffiti.
I was going to say, yeah, I guess in the next hearing too, if there's any examples or photos that you have of that color, I guess if we're making the motion darker, then I could find this supportable as is. I think this portion of the Mesa too, it's just very eclectic, so I think more open to it, just knowing how many different styles of home, roofs, all of that, but it's just not something I'd really seen before, so in residential, so I think if you could bring photos or if there's any in the neighborhood or whatever, that could be helpful, but I'll let Chair decide the verbiage for the motion.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Can we go to the site plan? And then if, the colorized one, the landscape.
Oh, the
site
landscape plan.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem. It's down here.
It's page 38. Oh, there you go. Okay. So, yeah, if we zoom out a little bit, call out 14. What is that? That's the fencing to remain. Okay, what is the planting? What's the planting that's remaining that's kind of the light color? D.
So that was going to be lower growing planting. So this is a really constrained side yard. So my concern was packing the whole space full of like a hedge material that would eventually kind of occupy between the fence and the house and make it inaccessible. But we could certainly introduce hedging material there to satisfy the board and the neighbors.
It is also heavily vegetated along the neighbor's property. Let me just go to some site photos. You can't even see the structure. The only time I was able to see the structure is when we went to the neighbor's property out of his second story and then looked over. Let me just quickly go up to the site photos. All right, here we go. You can, is there any good ones here? Shoot. You could kind of see it right here. This is a property line here. You can see how dense it is. And then let me go to this will be able to really. So as you can see, all this hedging right in here along the property line. It's probably 10 to 15 feet tall.
On the sides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, I think you're identifying the different.
This one here. Oh, there's nothing currently, and that's where we're doing those hedging. Currently, it's the opposite. It's a fishbowl into our property. So he looks straight in. Here, this might actually be better. Let's see.
Actually, yeah, if you zoom into that perspective?
Yeah, let's see.
Aerial.
Let me get in closer.
Because it appears like there's hedges and then what, they just stop or what?
So you can see the hedging along the property to this neighbor here. And then right now, it's literally just a fence, and I think he has some hedging on maybe his property, but currently on ours, there's nothing. It looks straight down onto our property.
Is that his driveway that comes right
Yeah,
along?
this is his driveway right here that comes along here.
I think what's weird I mean, you're gonna have a fence anyway, and it just seems a little odd to only have a little bit of tall hedging anyway. I mean, do you even need it?
I did do a perspective, just if you want to put it on, just as I thought something. This is looking from his driveway towards our property, and then obviously the trees are showing through the fence. But that was just the idea to create privacy, to create that kind of just into one for us because he looks directly into our property. One, to create privacy for that hallway, and then this is the view from looking from his balcony.
Well, I don't think extending is gonna do anything
Well,
for over by the stair.
I think what our intention was when we were talking about this element, there was no window there. And so we were saying, could we possibly add a window and or landscaping to soften this? So that's why I was asking questions about the planted material there, which is lower. But because they were recommending that they were going to extend this out further. That's what they're planning to do, is extend it out further. But then there's just a chunk of hedges in the middle, which may not look as odd from your side, but would from the neighbors. And also, I do think it would be nice from both sides to have something green, especially yours, to look out from those bedroom windows.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what the condition or what the fence looks like, but I think it just makes sense. I don't know how wide. I mean, that does look really narrow, so I think there's probably hedges that you could select that would have a more narrow profile. How wide is that walkway?
It's about 6 feet from setback, so probably 3 feet.
3 and 3.
Yeah, 3 and 3. So it is fairly tight. But we could look at doing some vines that go up the fence to soften it or something like that too. But we'll definitely extend these hedging. That was, the neighbor did ask, and so that was something we're happy to address. And so that's sort of where we landed with that.
Okay. I mean, I think you could probably make it work, and it might be a little bit tight to extend it out, but I'll leave that to you guys to figure out.
Extend it this
Yeah.
To the,
I mean,
to the.
I don't want to speak for
To where the
Sherry,
to where the neighbor's structure starts. Like you say, it doesn't really
It's more at the back.
have much of an effect once the neighbor's garage takes over.
Yeah.
But up into the garage, it would soften that massing of that element, and that was the original reason that we made the comment.
But if you're looking at this image, would you guys want to extend the hedge to the left there towards the
To
street?
the west.
Okay, so to the west would be towards.
Would be that,
Yeah.
that way, towards
But
the
you're,
garage.
you guys aren't concerned
Toward the
about.
garage of the neighbor.
Yeah.
To soften the stairway element.
Okay.
And then City TV, if you could go to the computer as well, I just wanted to show you, I zoomed in. And we'll confirm too with Jim, the neighbor, it does appear he has hedging here. We didn't document this, so it could kind of go back, portion on ours, portion on his. It could help kind of stagger it a little bit, so we'll just double check that when we come back. And then we'll have a solution for sure.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Just a pesky little, Chair Graffiti, which one's the?
Board member.
Board member Graffiti and board member. I just want a pesky little zoning note that it can only be 42 inches within the first 20 feet along the driveway. So once you get towards the street, just keep that in mind.
Right, okay. It's 20 feet from that street?
Along the driveway of the neighbors. So anytime you're adjacent to a neighbor, hedging and fencing can go in. Okay.
Yeah, I just, sorry.
Perfect.
Do you want me, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Making them all day from consent.
Okay, I move to approve this project for project design approval and continue to consent for final approval with the following conditions, that the hedge be extended to help conceal the stairs structure by going further west, that the applicant provide physical sample or photos to support the color of the galvanized roof, and or go with a darker shade. The board is also open to a standing seam metal roof. Sebastian, will you go to the next slide? The proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. The proposed development is compatible with the neighborhood, and its size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the site and neighborhood. The proposed buildings and structures are designed with quality architectural details. The proposed materials and colors maintain the natural appearance of the ridgeline or hillside. No trees are to be removed. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. The project generally complies with the Good Neighbor Guidelines regarding privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting. The development, including proposed structures and grading, preserves significant public scenic views of and from the hillside.
That's it.
I would like to second the motion, but I just want to clarify for our comment around extending the hedging, also up for discussion, collaboration with neighbor to understand hedging on that property and potential use of vines and other planting materials. But I think the intention is provide a clear landscape plan that addresses softening the facade of that stair. Is that?
Also under discussion, just a comment that the sizes of the proposed hedge be included in the final approval.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you already know that we want a little bit, bigger.
No, but I'll add it in there for the consent person. So if we can revise the statement about the landscaping to say, to propose updated landscaping that provides screening to the stair element. It can include landscaping done on the neighbor's side as well.
Yep.
Okay.
And for any new proposed hedging.
And that any new proposed hedging be 15 gallons and noted on the plans.
Great. I'll accept that as a seconder.
Okay.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry,
Yes.
Board Member Graffiti,
Yes.
Board Member Mosley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great,
Appreciate your time.
thanks. And just the applicant, just going to announce the appeal period. It's 10 days from now. If we don't get anything from you guys, you can start working on your next submittal. Thank you.
I want brownies. Will you bring them over here? Okay. The next item is a continued item for project design approval, 575 Bramer Ranch. Proposal to permit 700 square feet of as-built additions and construct 557 square feet of new additions to an existing 4,749 square foot, 3-story residence, an attached 649 square foot, 2-car garage. Project includes replacement of all windows and doors, exterior material alterations, new pool, and expansion of the existing covered patio and existing deck. The proposed total of 5,508 square feet of development on a 2.5 acre lot is 94% of the maximum guideline Florida lot area ratio. The project was last heard on March 10th. Are there any staff comments?
Yes. So staff has to schedule this project for a decision by May 26th of this year. If the board can find a majority of the project to meet the project design approval findings, the PDA may be granted with conditions. I just want to remind you of that. The project needs to be continued. Staff asks that the project be continued to date certain to ensure deadline compliance with the Project Streamlining Act. Currently, we have room on the agendas for April 21st, May 5th, and May 19th. So we only have 3 hearing dates left. And one other note I wanted to say is I just wanted to continue the comments from the last hearing about FAR. We're still waiting to get those details prior to the final approval hearing. So I believe it's without the basement reduction, 50% reduction, the FAR is about 104%, just going off of memory. But I'll go ahead and continue the comments from staff comments from the last hearing to this hearing. So,
But that's a guideline FAR. Just wanted to
correct. It is all guideline FAR.
All right, thank you. If you can make sure your microphones are on and all state your name for the record, you'll have 15 minutes to present. If you can make sure to show us the old minutes and any revisions from the last time we saw this.
Sure. My name is David Watkins, project designer for this project.
Gailey Rishal, interior designer.
Eric Sudlar, the owner, and hired David about 4 years ago to start working on this project.
And then you want to
start?
Yeah,
so the original intent of the project is to update the exterior materials where there's been a lot of water intrusions at those wooden beams you can see. Those are kind of rotting in some places, so they really have to be dealt with from just a safety point of view. And then to increase the area of the kitchen by bumping it out there, and the deck, which is a little bit narrow for the table I have on there, and then use some space in the back around where that little bed, we're gonna have that bedroom thing, right? And other than that, just all the windows and doors are pretty ancient, don't seal very well. So those are kind of like the minimum things that I want to get done with the project. And then beyond that, it was like just try to kind of update it, because the house, you know, kind of was designed by someone that thought a Swiss chalet look for Santa Barbara would be good. Which is kind of a weird thing, like since a roof like that's pointed like that is mostly pointed like that for snow, you know, and that hasn't really been an issue since I've been in Santa Barbara, that we have snow that, you know, and I kind of like get off that roof. But but without, it seemed like through the negotiations we've done with the city, touching the roof seemed like it would be really expensive, so prohibitively expensive. So we kind of stopped down that path, and it seemed like also last time we went, I guess the first time we went to the board here, there were some concerns with some of the exterior details. So just kind of like simplifying the projects down to just those basics that I'm trying to get to at this point.
And so just to recap a little bit with the project, I think last time there was some comments about charm with the existing project and trying to tie in with what we're proposing with what was already there. I think I provided these photos from the last meeting to kind of provide a more accurate depiction of what's actually done on site and what was installed that's different from the original permit's intention. So last round we had kind of this, what was intended to be, you know, the permitted set of elevations against our proposed. A lot of that didn't get built out, and you can kind of see that with these elevations here. So I can go in more detail about it, but I think this is a good element right here that really captures kind of what was meant to be done versus what was actually done. For instance, these columns right here are 8-inch columns on the archive plans. I can pan to in a minute. They're supposed to be much wider, which actually based that whole big mass that we have as this 2-story house above this basement level. And they didn't do that. So you have these really spindly columns, which I think is really out of scale for a project this size. You can kind of see that right here too. This was supposed to be capped out, pulled out, beefed up. It's supposed to have a column cap and everything right at this transition line. And none of that got done. And then right here, there was supposed to be a banding detail that wrapped around this whole deck here that actually provided that character that was kind of happening with the 2-story element above with the wood trim and things like that. And I think they basically just value engineered it and just didn't install that. They did this plaster base, which I don't think ties in with the rest of the house. That was supposed to be the chateau look. That whole deck was actually supposed to be built out of wood, framed out, detailed. These columns were actually supposed to be much bigger too. They were 8x8s, and these are like 4x, and they're deteriorating pretty bad. You can kind of see these close-ups here. They're really small and spindly. So what was intended to be there never really got done. I think what's left is this representation of this decking that's kind of was half done. Because it was done a certain way, the drainage is a big issue. It just spills over the side. That trim's not there to catch it. There was supposed to be a concealed drain around the perimeter that didn't get there. So we're actually trying to capture a lot of that with our new design. And you know, these elements we're keeping here with these columns, we're just going to beef them up and get a column cap up here to break up that massing, kind of reinforce that original design intent that got left out. And then, you know, an element right here, bring back that trim detail, but do it out of that travertine or limestone and wrap it around that corner there, so it actually has that horizontal banding element that's missing there. So I think that's a good photo that kind of captures it. It shows that chimney up above, that detail. We're going to keep that as is. We're not touching that. You can see the PV panels on the roof here. That's already entirely 100% over the roof lines. And that already is starting to lend itself towards kind of a more contemporary look, especially like right here. So with the wood and everything in that microclimate, it's just rotting away. So trying to replace that with fiber cement, I think, would be inappropriate, and it would actually detract more away from that original design intention. So by stripping that off, just reinforcing the plaster, making it a smooth finish, cleaning up all the doors and windows, replacing them, actually pulling back mullions where we don't have anything right now. It's just these big French doors with no breakups or anything like the original intention was supposed to be. You can kind of see that here too. And then this element, because all this front wall here is pulled out about 3 feet from the permitted set, that's this big flat, horizontal mass here that was never meant to be the intention. This is supposed to be a 2-story bay element that popped out. So when we come forward right here off the kitchen, I'm going to break that massing with the roof here with this rake wall that's a gable, and then actually fur out this element right here, this 2-story element, to kind of reinforce that breakup that we were trying, or was originally intended on the project. I'll go to the minutes real quick, so I can kind of touch on those, and then I can go back to the elevations to show you what was originally permitted.
Yeah, and through the chair to the applicant, I just noticed when I was bringing up the documents that is just the agenda. I do have a copy of the minutes on my screen, so I'll go ahead and switch that now. And apologies for the format's a little different. I couldn't find the final draft agenda, but it's the same language here. So again, these were the staff comments I wanted to continue, and it is about 113% guideline without the reduction. And here is the following motion here.
So I'll jump into two. The existing design, I kind of touched on that design with the roof elements and kind of the overall design aesthetic that we're pushing towards. I actually feel like we're trying to bring back some of that detailing that got left out from the original permitted set and bring back some more character-defining elements and tie in that base and actually make it seem like it's grounding this big floating 2-story element above that, while also providing the safety and the weatherproofing and the drainage issues that we're already experiencing. The details we have, they're pretty consistent. We're doing that stone trim sill detail everywhere at all the windows, and then we're using that same stone as our column caps throughout the site when we have that happen, and then around that trim detail around the exterior of the deck that I was talking about. Number 3, we do have a retaining wall color. We looked at that and we did a darker shade, which we can show you guys that you guys can see that. And I'll point out too, with that orientation, it faces towards a creek. It's about 45 feet, I think, drop till it gets to our west property line, and then the creek drops around a little bit out and it goes up
Sebastian, if you
again.
can switch back so we can see what he's referencing.
Thanks. And so let me, there you go.
Oh, and through the chair to the applicant, that is the old plans from the last hearing.
Thank you.
Yeah, just great.
Okay, so let me just jump here real quick. I'll go to the site. There you go. So this creek is kind of right over here. This is where that proposed development is going to go on the west off the house, and here's the pool with the retaining wall that drops down around the edge. And so that darker color is going to wrap around that dropped retaining wall edge there, and that's going to be this darker green. And what's the color name of that? Sorry.
This color is called Evergreen Fog by Sherwin Williams.
Sure.
And I kind of started to add in some coloration just to get a sense of the hedging that's happening in that area. And there's already some developed trees, like a pine that's going to remain, that's helping shield that orientation. And then there's already a lot of bougainvilleas and things like that. that are also
CCTV, can you please move the camera to focus on the table, please? Thank you.
Yeah, it's,
you know,
Wait.
do you have the
Oh, there you
material
go.
board online? The material board we submitted the last time, because it has the color on there we can show.
It should be on your old plans.
That color wasn't on the old set though. We just did it after our last round. It was like a second.
Is it not included on one of the last sheets of the attachment?
No. Oh, let me see. I'm sorry. Let me check real quick. It is. Sorry. It is? Yep. Here you go.
Oh,
It's this color right here, correct? And even then, that's, this is warmer in real life, I believe, than what we're seeing.
correct. Yeah.
And then,
Visually, it doesn't come out as accurate.
in terms of landscaping, we did hear the board's comments about looking at screening.
Pictures of the creek, though, just to show, I mean, it's kind of hard to visualize.
It's a second photo set that I think was from an earlier submittal, but if you guys want that, we can go back to that in a minute. Let me go back to the landscape plan to address the comment about the, here we go. So what I'm proposing, because this is a steep slope right here along the base of that retaining wall, it gets pretty deep around this corner at about 15 feet, right around here. There is an existing tree that's already there we're going to keep, and there's some bougainvillea, so we'll maintain that as well, but we'll also add some buckwheat to stabilize that slope, and do some other natives like Pittosporum, the species I'm calling out. It gets up to like 12 or 15 feet. So we'll put some of those around that perimeter as well. This right over here. And then some white sage, just kind of break up, which we're also proposing on this dropped retaining wall planter right here as well. Sorry, let me go closer. So
You have
then-
about 5 minutes
Yep.
remaining.
And then I'll go to I think the last comment was just related to the landscaping and the color, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the last comment was applicant to return with proposed landscaping that softens the retaining wall. That was comment number 4.
And then just to kind of go back on the glazing comment again, because there was another comment towards the end of the hearing about the different massing elements, the glazing elements that from base level to mid-level, and that there's a more vertical approach that's happening with a lot of these window lines that we're seeing, but it kind of got broken up a little bit on the south that somebody felt. So we looked at that here. And in this room, the existing header was already being maintained, so we kept that. And looking at that, we can pull that up a little bit higher. So we're going to pull that header up here at this dining room, get more visible views out there, which would make Eric happy. And then that kind of helps, I think, reinforce the verticality of all this glazing now. And so that happened right there. This window was a different size before based on the discrepancies in the archives and the existing. So this is actually accurate of what that height was, which I think looked a little bit different last time, like a little bit more squatty and horizontal. And so you can see what that's the existing window unit right there. Right now, we're keeping it as is and just resizing with this mullion breakups. And so we feel like that addressed that comment right with the verticality of the glazing and the paneling. Again, all the French windows or all the glazing that's there on site right now, it doesn't have any of these mullions, so we're actually kind of trying to get back to what that original intention was. And then we actually brought this column back over here. That was an existing column. We're going to keep that so that helps break up this patterning again too, so it wasn't as wide as it was before. And then real quickly, this gives you a sense of what was actually meant to be built in the 80s. Tons of mullion breakups, 70s, yeah. So a lot more mullion breakups that we have now, and so that's really busy. And one of the big things that Eric has loved is looking out at his views from up top there where they're located. It's an awesome part of town. You get this great ocean view. And he wants to maintain that and actually try to get as much of that back as possible. So having as minimal amount of mullions would be beneficial to him. And so that's just for reference from the archive plans. And we're really excited.
Can you show the
We've done a lot
pictures
of
of
work.
the creek now?
Do you have the site photos? That's a second attachment from like the original submittal. It'd be titled just photo pages.
It might be attached to the old plans at the very bottom.
Okay.
I would scroll there and see if there's any additional photos. If they're not, I can dig around for them. It doesn't look like it.
Is it possible to do like a Google overview to get a sense of the vegetation and stuff at the creek?
Yeah, just go to Google Maps.
It's not in here. I can't do it on my end.
They have to. And
They have to do it, yeah. So anyways,
I-
that'll wrap up my stuff. Thank you.
Are these the
Yeah.
photos? Okay,
Perfect.
great. You go ahead and direct me. I'll
If you keep scrolling down, I'll tell you to stop, sorry. So we can stop here real quick. This is looking from the driveway, from the end of the cul-de-sac of Braemar, going up the driveway that they get access to, looking towards the property, right behind all that heavy vegetation. The main house will be up behind that. To your left in that photo, will be the west side of the property, and as it slopes down, you can kind of catch a glimpse of that, and that's where the creek goes on that far part of, left of that photo, down below there.
Anything else?
If you go down more, this is looking up above from pretty much the entryway of the house, looking down towards that driveway we're standing at a minute ago, towards the approach of the property, and you can kind of see again how much developed vegetation there is off that corner, so you really don't see that until you pull up. Just looking across the neighbors, you guys have already seen that before, no visibility. This is on within the site itself, just getting a view of up that southeast corner of where the kitchen's gonna go. Down the driveway for sense of slope. Close up of the house. This is looking north from the front lawn, so you can get a sense that the northern property is even higher, and you can't see anything from that property down to this one. This is looking up towards probably the southwest corner of the pool, the proposed pool location. That's years ago, though. That's probably 3-4 years ago, so the vegetation is very different now and a lot more developed, which I had in my more recent photos. That's looking down towards the creek, so you can get a sense this corner actually is where the pool is going to go and the patio, so you can look right down. That's a little accessory structure that's below it, going to remain, and you can see the creek and all the vegetation beyond that. And here's a tree. Yep.
That's our time.
Thank you.
So we'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. I'll start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project. If anyone wishes to make a comment, they may fill one out and bring it to me. I see no one in the audience moving to do so, so we will go to virtual attendance. And at this time, I do not see any hands raised for this project, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so at that I will give it back to you, Chair Lewis.
All right, thank you. We'll move to public comment. Oh, I'm so sorry. Questions from the board. We'll start with Board Member Mosley.
Can you go to sheet A901, which you have the 3D views, and have it on your old plans as well? I remember you had it, and just like walk us through the changes from previous time.
Sure.
Can you have the same sheet on your old plans as well, so
For our
that we
last
can,
one?
yeah, so we can go back and forth? I think you had it, so. Yes.
Okay, let's do, I'll be able to show it. This is a good one here. This is the old plan, so the mullions weren't added yet, these French doors and side lights here.
Okay.
Along this dormer element that we're doing here and along the south. These, this window right here was shorter, it was the existing header height, so it wasn't raised up yet. And then you can see on the new scheme here, that got higher. So it's reading more vertical now, and there's that bird element that was already there. There's the mullions being added here, and that's following that 3-panel system we're trying to do for everything, for the language. Nothing changed over here, that was from before. This column is kept in this current scheme, where before it was removed to make this nice open space, for entertaining over the pool spots. We're maintaining that to help break this span massing right here. And that trim's already there, that's talking about. So those were the elements we worked
Okay,
on from the
so
outside.
mostly it's the mullions that are added, but the layout of the windows have not changed from
It's all
previously?
existing to remain. We're not gonna mess around with all
Okay.
the opening sizes and stuff. I will point out one other thing, sorry. This is the old scheme where this roof element, your comment about the charm and kind of trying to find ways to maintain that from the existing roof to the new design. This was a shed, that used to be a tower, went to a shed, but we actually are doing this kind of hip dormer thing to match the existing roofing element. That we're doing this larger dormer, and that works a lot better. So we're doing that right there too. That increase in, there's no increase in height in the plate or the windows or anything like that. It's just the roof design element itself that got updated.
It's like an added hip roof there.
Which is matching, let's see if there's another view that can, it's kind of hard with that darkness to catch it. Let's see if I'll zoom in here.
It's a touch screen, if that helps.
It's right, yeah, it's
Yeah,
right
I'm
there.
seeing on my
It's matching
screen,
this,
yeah.
this same element though, but on a smaller scale. Another comment I think about the roof element I'll point out is that with the existing house, it has these big heavy beams that pull off. They're pretty deep, they're about 30 inches in most situations. We can't make that work off the kitchen here, and so, because you have a clearance problem right there, head height, so we're maintaining that same detail. We have a heavy exposed beam end, but it's just going to be a lesser overhang. So we're maintaining that same consistency again. But those are, here you go. That kind of shows a little better.
Oh, apologies. Can you turn on your microphone?
Sorry.
Thank
Yes.
That was my question. I just
Oh,
wanted
and
to
your
see
comment
that.
about corbels. Sorry, you did bring up last time about corbels. We're maintaining those corbels here. One thing that's different is on the existing house, this kicker is, this brace is a curve. We're taking that out. We're going to reframe it with like 6x, so at least it's a 6x6 straight post at a 45, and that's going to still be the same extension and same beam end and everything like that. We're not going to change that profile. We're just going to change the post or the brace.
Thank you.
Are those garage doors glass down at the bottom?
Yeah, there'll be some. Sorry. Yes, there'll be semi-opaque though, so you at least get some light in there, but fire rated.
Okay. Board Member Graffiti, any questions?
Yes, a few. Could you go to the materials board, please? Okay, and maybe we can zoom in.
And we had these last time too. The only thing that was new was
Yeah.
this retaining wall colors. So.
Yes, which I have all the tile samples as well.
Okay, great.
Do you want the first page or the second?
No, I just want to skim through. Yeah, this is good, and then we can go to the next one.
Let me know if you want me to pull out those tile samples.
Okay, that's helpful. And then can you go to the second?
Sure.
Lighting.
Dark sky compliant, replace existing location. We have the lighting shown on our plans too, on our floor plans.
Okay. And I know you covered this before, but can we just cover quickly the heights of the of the retaining wall? And then I maybe want to revisit the landscaping intentions.
Sure. Let me go back to the civil. So here's the civil plan to kind of break it down a little cleaner. The pool level will be about 30 inches higher here. And this drop down, and because of that slope, this is the best we can do, and so it goes to 0 here at the the northern end here, and over here on the east, and then it drops down to 15 around this corner right here. So here's that profile of what it does if you did a wrap section, like around, or wrap elevation around that corner here. Here's the corner.
Okay.
So here it slopes down pretty fast, and then comes up to 0 on both ends. And so
Okay,
that's
so
what we'll do
the highest point is 15 feet. Okay.
And if we did another set of retaining walls below that, we'd just be chasing that again. It'd be like 9 feet
Okay.
again, and I think that's more apparent and more
Okay.
visible.
Gotcha. Can we go back then? I know you were kind of quickly talked through some of the planting intentions, and I know it's not final, so we don't necessarily have every single specific detail and gallon and everything, but I wanted to, can you zoom in on some of those plants?
So the red with the green is just showing what the
Bougainvillea.
existing bougainvillea
Yep.
remain is. So this will be, it's all right here right now. We'll trim it back, and there'll still be some right here.
Right.
This, I'm showing where the buckwheat's gonna go here and here to
Uh-huh.
stabilize that slope. And then these pittosporums, maybe on the corner right here, because they get pretty tall.
Okay.
And so they'll kind of shield that, but this is an existing pine.
And at the
That's an existing
highest point of the wall where it's 15 feet, can you point that out here? Is
Here,
that where-
right there.
It's right there,
Yep.
okay.
And then it pulls back, I would say probably to 8 around there. And then
Okay.
around here, and then it pulls up pretty fast from 8 to 0.
Okay, and you said, what type of pittosporum are you
It's,
recommending?
where did it go?
I didn't see it on the page.
Yeah, it was. No, sorry, it's a pittosporum, ceanothus. It's a ceanothus, my bad.
Okay.
Totally different, not pittosporum.
When you said native pittosporum,
No, I know, that's
I
right.
was wondering.
Ceanothus. This
Okay,
arboreus is like a taller kind of vertical, almost like tree-like one, and it gets pretty tall.
Right, okay.
So that's what
Okay,
I'm totally
got it.
different plant. I think I got confused from the last project here.
no problem. That's all my questions right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, Board Member Sherry?
So what you showed us with all the breakups in the windows, those older plans, that's the way the house was originally supposed to be built. And it was never built that way. So what essentially we're looking at is an as-built condition.
Yep, and it's that's what part of our project proposal too, is the permitting of the as-built elements are all in gray. Like base level here, this is as-built. this is this is proposed.
The
and as-built,
additions
sorry.
were as-built, but then the whole design was changed.
On that second and third level from the south elevation, that whole elevation got changed by 3 feet and got pulled out.
Without a permit?
Yep.
Okay.
Here
That's-
you go.
that's
See,
all I-
that's where it used to be, that white line was kind of.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks, David.
Other questions?
I think the mullions, the original design were just kind of glue-on things that kind of stuck, I mean, were coming off.
It's all right. You answered my
Is the
question.
roof material staying the same?
The Tesla, it's all Tesla panels, and so that's all
Oh,
PV
so it's
roof
not
system.
what's in your area, what's in your shot at the end? Okay.
Yeah, that photo is an old photo from like
Okay.
when you bought the house, like maybe a Zillow photo. So
Got
when Eric
it.
did that first year.
Okay, got it. Okay. We'll move to comments. Board Member Mosley.
Can we go please to the elevations sheet? Let's start with, what is that? A201.
So here's as-built.
Yeah, so I think like having the divided lights and adding the mullions helps a little bit going back to the original design. Although it's not consistent, as an example, that window, like a triangular, which is called window F, if you zoom in on the door, you have a door number 5 in it. Like on the upper side, it's not like that horizontal mullions is not continuing. And I was looking at the original elevations, like there was a rhythm that was going all around. That was like a little super small breakups, but as you're doing that, I think like it will help to be consistent.
I did explore that. The mullions on that, because of that angle, don't look good though, because your alignment starts to get off and you can't match that alignment with everything else down below that as you
Yeah,
get
I
that triangle,
understand.
because you
Like-
only have one panel on the left here.
Yeah,
The
but
next
Never mind, we're in comments right now, and for sake of time, we'll stick to just the board giving comments.
So the other thing is the column in front of this, which is like when you see door number 5, this column is not existing, right?
Proposed.
It's proposed. And what was the intention behind the location of this? Because I'm seeing it's like somewhere
Your
in the
original
middle.
comments were that this massing element in the front here was imbalanced and that this kitchen element coming forward was too heavy because it was unsupported at the first review. And so we had broken up this column here to make vehicle access more manageable for Eric because it's really hard to make this turn and get in there. Despite that, though, we put this back in there, and this is actually spacing that's equal. So this gap here and this spacing are equal to each other,
Okay.
and these two are equal to each
So
other.
it's because of the spacing that matching to the right side?
Yeah,
you
because
have
this
that,
column.
But it's like sitting somewhere in the middle of the window mullions and everything.
I mean, but that's, except Eric doesn't have a problem with that. That's 42 inches, 9 feet off of that glass line. It's not going to impact your views.
Okay, and can we go to that elevation that you added, the hip roof? It's
Here you go.
east elevation. I was looking at the original design, and I don't know if like that hip roof will help that much to the going back to the original charm, because the original design was that one hip roof, which is upstairs, it's the intention of that huge proportion of roof. So like that little, adding that hip roof, I don't think it's like something that can help to the charm of the house.
It's a design element that's secondary to the
Right, we're
primary.
just on comments, if you can just continue comments.
Yeah, that was my second comment. And that's it.
Okay, Board Member Graffiti.
So tough. I think there's definitely progress made on this since we saw this the first time. I'm really trying to think about what was permitted, what wasn't, what is acceptable, what isn't, and how visible it is. I think one thing going in your favor is this isn't a hugely visible project. I definitely would want to see a more built-out landscaping plan for that wall. I do think that there are a lot of improvements to the design that could be made. Board member Mosley mentioned a few. I'm sure my other board members may have other ideas. But I could find it acceptable to approve.
Okay, board member Sherry.
I'm challenged with this project too. I think that partly it's because we're looking at something that has a bunch of illegal or as-built conditions, and then we're trying to find a way to approve it. So in my head, what I keep going through over the last, I wasn't even in the first meeting, but the last two meetings, we've tried to make some comments that might help you, but you've got a really big challenge. And because of the as-built conditions and the original house, although it was a chalet and there's no snow in Santa Barbara, as the homeowner said, it was designed that way, and it was quite charming, actually. And then now we're working with something that to start with doesn't look anything like what was approved, and then we're trying to fix that. So you're stripping it of all of the elements that should have been on the original drawing, the original design. Half of them weren't even there, and the half timbering was taken completely off, and you're trying to make a chalet into a contemporary home. And so one of the comments that didn't really, that the other challenge is that these big heavy timber beam ends and corbels and knee bracings, you're now starting to replace them with a straight member that I'm not sure is really helping at all.
Only at the braces, though, so not the ends.
David, excuse me, we're in comments, so. So that's one issue. And then, I'm looking at the proposed south elevation, and then there's this, it's almost like that house, that side of the house doesn't look like the other sides of the house. There's a really wide, I was trying to figure out what I'm not liking about that, the mullions and the big window that goes up the rake, and I think that it's not necessarily the proportions of the mullions being horizontal versus vertical, it's the window is so big. And all the other windows are more vertical in proportion, and now you've got this window that's wider, almost wider than it is tall. And so I don't think that's resolved. So I will say, though, on a positive note, is that I think it's moving in the right direction. But I think that the efforts that you're doing, I would encourage you to keep looking at those things like that large window on the south elevation. I just don't think it's quite there. And also on a positive note is the fact that, fortunately it's not, visible from a whole lot of locations. But we still have to look at how to come to a place of approvability, so.
Yeah, well, and I will say it's up on a hill, so you can see it in the distance, but the part I'm struggling with similarly is that it looks like almost every square inch that was possible is turned into glass, and so from the hill you just see glass. But there is another property further back that seems to be also an insane amount of glass. It seems to be a rarity now, and now we're just adding to it. So, yeah, I think the thing that don't know what style it is now, and I don't know how I would make findings, though I might be able to support some others. I think the garage being glass just adds to all this glass. Yeah, I I'm stuck with this.
I did forget to make one comment about the landscaping, and just to change
Please.
the subject a little bit, is I think that the ceanothus probably isn't going to get high enough for me to be able to support that wall, but a higher solution would, I could support a higher.
It's a specific variety, though.
Oh, the ceanothus.
It goes to 12
how-
to 15 feet.
Oh, it's a tree?
Yeah, it's not a
Okay,
shrub.
okay. Okay, got it.
I
Stand
don't know
corrected.
if that changes anything.
Just to add up, I think like it's going towards the right direction. Maybe like, I think like the corbels, like it's a little bit helping, like that curved one was like, with all the windows, was like really popping out. Like now it's much better muted, but now that I'm looking, especially south elevation, still like the way that it's broken up, the windows, the mullions, they're not talking to each other. For example, the way like, so we know the garage door needs to be like broken up like in a certain proportions, but it's speaking up to the window above it and the window to the left. So they're not like talking to each other. And because like we have some doors as well and you're adding those mullions, so like I think like the consistency of like the way that it's broken up, and it's hard because there are like constraints of angles as well. And as board member Sherry was saying, the other elevations, so it's like you have added all those horizontal mullions to the south elevation, but as we go to the other ones, because they're like smaller fixed or operable windows, it seems like there's like a different elevation of another house. So you can't change anything about the east elevation windows, but you can broken up the south elevation more, so that's
Yeah, I
just
think
a
it
thought.
reads like multiple different houses thrown together, and I understand why it does, but I think if we step back and go, what's the final proposed? I think especially the south elevation is the one that you see at a distance, is the one that needs a little bit of work, and I agree about the divisions of the mullions. I think too, it's worth looking at like, what is this offset by the roof? And sometimes that's consistent, sometimes it's not, of how far down a window, how much of the solid versus void that you see. And maybe if you want to bring in some inspiration photos that go along with it to justify stuff, but I don't know what the style.
I think the issue is the timbering was breaking up the facade into like a pattern, and then the windows was inserted in, and now you have taken out that, and I'm looking at the north elevation as well. The north elevation, the existing one, because it had the timbering and it had the windows inside of it, so the as-built, it's much rhythmic than like the proposed, and the reason for that is like you taking out that pattern.
I mean, the north side doesn't bother me as much because it's
Yeah.
covered in landscape, and I
It's
understand
not-
that you're replacing
exactly.
existing. It's in the areas where you're proposing something new and the lack of language. So does anyone want to make a motion?
I can try. I mean, I just.
Because we can continue this project to April 21st, May 5th, or May 19th. I'm unsure of what the clear comments or direction are.
Well, I'll make a motion to continue this project to one of those three. Sounds like we have to pick one. Is that what it is?
Yeah, you could say May 19th or earlier. Would that be possible?
Yeah, so the three next SFDB dates are.
We've got the three, but do we have to state all three? Like, if we don't care which day it is?
You would
so
have to
that's-
continue it to one of those specific dates because we're in a deadline.
But could we say May 19th or earlier, so that it's up to them, but getting an application in sooner?
I would prefer a single date. I can call if if you would mind to ask
No,
for.
No, I would say
can
then May
speak with
5th
the
or something, give them a
Okay,
month.
so
or-
I'll make a motion to continue this item to the May 5th agenda with the comment to that the proposed color for the retaining wall is acceptable, and for the applicant to continue studying the window proportions and breakups relative to all four elevations, with a specific emphasis on the challenges to the south elevation. And I was going to put something in there about, so that the applicant understands the specific issues, but I think it was about the challenge to the south elevation being that there's so much glazing. So I think that comment that I made kind of covers it,
I think something that might be helpful, I don't want to cut you off, is just if we could provide comments and relate them back to maybe the findings that we need to make. So like cohesive design style, scale, blending with the hillside. I don't know, it might be helpful as we think about what we would need to find it approvable as we think about our guidelines.
So the second comment would be, well, it's kind of the same comment that I made. I mean, I made the comment about.
I think it's fine. If someone wants to make an amended revised comment, then that's fine too.
And the garage is on the south elevation, so I think that's the biggest challenge. So I don't know if that's specific enough for direction. I feel like we need to be really specific, but then it's hard to be specific because of the challenges. But that's my motion. If you could maybe Joni or Sebastian, if you could read that back to me, what I said?
Yeah, I think, well, I think I only had two, so let's continue to May 5th for project design approval, and then the retaining wall color is acceptable, and then the second was study the window proportions and breakups, and all four elevations with emphasis on the south elevation challenges.
I'll make a third comment then, that the intent is that the final design is representative of a clear architectural style and cohesive style.
Are you seconding the motion with that
I
comment?
am.
And I'm okay,
Is the maker
I'm okay with
acceptable?
that third
Okay.
comment, yes.
And apologies for the interruption, but I know that there was mentioning about providing inspiration photos and things like that in your conversation. Would you like to add that in the motion, or is?
I'll add a fourth comment that it would be helpful to support the proposed style with inspiration photos to justify the design intent.
I'm okay with that.
Can I add something quickly?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
These comments just feel like the same as last time.
And the design
So we
looks
need a vote.
remotely the same as last time. Okay, we'll take a roll call.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry?
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti?
Yes.
Board Member Moslehy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
we are moving on to our last item. Thank you
And
for the paint.
I would just like to say that does start the 10-day appeal period. So any issues with the decision here made today, you can email me for any appeal issues. But if not, we'll look forward to your next resubmittal. Thank you.
All right. I know, is that for a final? This was just PDA. And we didn't give PDA.
We
just
didn't give the
continued it.
project PDA, so are you talking about an appeal? There was no decision.
The decision to
Continue.
to
You can
continue
appeal.
to
Okay.
project design approval, I believe, can be appealed.
Okay.
I don't think so. What-
You'll just confirm with staff on that.
Yeah.
With that. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Apologies for the confusion.
All right, the last item here today is 739 Alturas del Sol, here for project design approval. Proposal for additions for first, second, and third floors to the existing 2,687 square foot, 3-story home with an attached 489 square foot garage 101 square feet of the first floor is proposed for demolition. A new covered 525 square foot first story deck facing the backyard, a new 35 square foot second story balcony, and 29 square foot third story balconies face the street are proposed. New windows and doors throughout with roofing to match existing. A creek is located on the parcel but will not be impacted by the project. The total proposed 3,545 square feet on a 64,052 square foot lot is 68% of the maximum guideline floor area ratio. The project was last heard on February 24th. Welcome. Any staff comments for this item?
No.
Okay, great. Then you'll have 15 minutes to present. It'd be helpful if you can go over the old minutes and any changes from the old plans to the plans we're seeing today. Oh, and if you can, yeah, state your name.
Great. Chris Cottrell, architect. I'm here with owner Nancy Sweet. And Chris Gilliland, landscape architect, is Sebastian. He's online. I think he needs to be made a presenter, if that's possible.
I don't believe we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can only have in-person showing of plans. We can't have folks Zoom in and present.
Can he give a public comment then later?
Yes, he can.
Okay.
Well, if there are questions, we'll save it for that. How's that?
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. I'll wait for. Are we?
You can get started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I believe all of you were here last time. It was just a little more than a month ago. So we took your comments. And let's see if I can pull these up. Here we go. To heart and looked at this thing with a fresh light and tried to get the building to reflect some of the intention of Mr. Burkus and kind of congeal this a little bit more. So I'll show you what we did. The idea was to take the core of this, which is the tallest element, and really accentuate that with the materials. So let's see. So this is in site plan. This is that core. This is the 3-story element. And instead of sort of having wood all over the place, I'll get back to the landscape plan. I just want to get you to the elevations. I'm so sorry you have to page down on this and make everyone sick. Okay. The idea is to skin that core in the wood, and then everything else is stucco. So it's more, it really reads from the entry. So we made glass and wood all the way up. Let me zoom in a little bit on this. So this core is all wood now, and then the surrounding is just quiet stucco like the neighbor to the north. We probably would go with a standing seam roof on this. We're not quite there yet, but I think that's where we'd be leaning with this. I can show you a quick little rendering on the cover. Let's see. Maybe I can. There we go. Okay, there we go. So the existing garage already, right now, this is stucco with that big heavy wood lid. And now what we've done is brought that core to the center, and now it's just surrounded by this soft stucco. We've also brought in Chris Gilliland to help us with the landscape to sort of soften. It's not a huge front yard, but it softens this thing on the way in. And I'll get to that landscape plan in a second. Here's the view from the back. This was one of the other comments. And one of the things we did, I think one of the board members was not concerned, but wondering about how that deck was feeling, sort of cantilevered out there. We enclosed those columns, so now the deck is really grounded into that back. And that is all, beyond that in the slope, that's all native landscape. So it's just sitting right in there and tucked in rather than feeling like it's perched out over it. So plan-wise, I think the only change to make this work was to get, and here's that neighbor to the north with that similar stucco that's original that we're talking about with a metal roof, just for precedent. they do have a glass railing. We are not going to do that. We're going to do a metal railing. Let me get to full-size plans. Okay, was to add on the third story connection to the outdoors. So we've got a balcony on the second floor, and now just a little peekaboo balcony up in that study on the third floor. And what I didn't explain last time is that there are ocean views on this side of the house that were just not ever realized, right? So these moves then connect this side. They get light and they get ocean views and a little bit of air if we do those balconies. So here's the second story balcony. This is over the front door, and then this is the one up on the third. It's just this is a little study with just a way to open the door and bring in some of that light and air and be out here and see that view. Yeah, and then landscape plan. So this is new from last time, and please pardon my drafting. This was me drafting and Chris designing, but when we come back, it will all be Chris Golan, Common Ground doing this. There are, let's see, it might be, let's see, zoom in a little bit. Okay, there are two existing trees that are flanking this property. One is this big California pepper that's actually not on the property, but it is a great big tree. And then there's a Mayten tree on the north side. So it's nice that it's got this, two big trees around it. And then Chris has got, and I'm going to slaughter these names. You guys can see this better than I can. Senecio mandrillesque. And then we've got agave attenuata beyond. Let's see, aloe. There's aloe right up against the garage. There's another aloe on the way in. This is an existing escallonia. And then on both sides, we've got this, I'm not even going to say this, I'll try it. Chondropatelium elephantinium, and that's on both sides of the house. So that'll be over here and down here. So it's just kind of there's not much room. There's just a calm progression of new fire-resistant landscapes, some succulents, some aloes at the entry. Nancy, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Very small yard, though.
Very small yard. Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I'll just end with looking at those different elevations, and then I'll go to questions. Okay. All right, so we've got, this is on the south elevation. We've got garage on the right. This is our covered deck on the left. So they both are horizontal elements. And then in the middle, we've got this wood-wrapped element. And the previous house had kind of a clunky top cap. It was a double top cap. It was pretty thick and clunky. And so this just kind of cleans that up. It just brings it more to contemporary times. And then this is the side facing the canyon. This is that covered deck from the back. Again, wood element. I did run the wood a little bit bigger just to work with this door inside there. And I think that's our last sheet. So I'll leave it there. It's been a long day.
Okay, we'll move to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Lewis. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular project, and I see no one in the audience to make a comment on that. And I will turn my attention to virtual attendance, and I do not see a hand raised in virtual attendance for public comment, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this particular project. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Lewis.
All right, thank you. Will you go to the old plans and show us the perspective that you had on your old plans?
Of course. On the old plans?
Mm-hmm. It's the third tab.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Must be at the end here, because it was right there, right? Sebastian, there were a couple sheets last time at the end that had that last perspective. It was a new cover sheet. Yep.
Okay. Will you go to the old minutes?
Sure.
Okay. So it's going to be a comment versus question situation here, but part of the evaluation of the wood versus the stucco relationship that we had talked about was also trying to understand what made sense for the Barry Burkus or not. So could you, I'm looking at the neighborhood and there's like 3 of these homes and they're all in odd geometry, but they were existing in odd geometry. But the other 2, and even this one originally, was all the same material. And so the geometry is what kind of stood out less than the material change. So what's the driver of keeping one element wood? Is it the same wood or you're going to have a new wood siding anyway?
Yeah, I think our goal is not to have another Barry Burkus house. I mean, I think this is a new house. But we do want to throw a nod to that.
The nod is the wood?
The nod is the massing of this. I
Right.
mean, the massing hasn't changed, right? So now the request from the board was to accentuate the verticality. So the idea was, well, that was at least verbal, and maybe it didn't make it to the minutes. Does it say that?
No.
In addition to keeping this architectural element in wood or something.
Okay.
The triangle.
Yeah, the intent of that comment was that they highly recommended keeping the triangle windows. And as that element, that was wood and keeping that wood. Now that it's not, you're not wanting it to be a Barry Burkus home. Okay, great. Then why are we keeping the angled roofs?
Because it's a remodel.
Okay, okay. So then, now if I were to step and look at this house uniformly, now why are we keeping the materials the way that they are? Rather, like, let's forget what it was. The point before was, like, lean into the Barry Burkus, and that's why you were keeping things. But if that's not the intent, then...
Yeah, I don't think our intent ever was to lean into the Barry Burkus. I know there are friends of Barry Burkus on the board, and that's great. But this is, a new house for a new owner, and the idea was just to do a remodel and use the same massing that's there, but clean it up into a more modern version. So our material palette was, a thermally modified wood with a stucco, and then after the board's comments, we looked at that, and maybe what we didn't need to do is put that whole garage in the wood, and maybe what we needed to do was accentuate this unique element of this, not the angle bracing, which is now in front of 2 balconies. So that just can't stay. That's just not an element that works with this to get the views and fulfill the program functions that are required here. So here's I can just go back.
So I guess the bigger question is, the choosing of making the tower wood was because you thought that's what the board wanted, not that it's your design.
No, I think it's a nice cohesive, I think it's an architectural feature. I think hopefully the board likes it, but I also think it works architecturally that you get this one unifying central bay of one material rather than, like a 1954 Mesa home where the front facade is wood and then you turn the corner and it's stucco, which is my house.
And then the proposed rendering, you've got 2 renderings. On the lower one, we see what you're saying is grounding. Would that be the same plaster color of the house? Or you had mentioned that there'd be screening landscaping. Is that...
Are you talking about the lower? Yeah. So right now, we hadn't proposed any landscaping in the canyon.
Okay. So that wall, though, is white to match the house?
Stucco, yeah, it's a white stucco now. It could be, we are not into colors yet. We could do that a darker color to make it recess a bit more, for sure.
Okay. Board Member Graffiti, do you have questions? No? Questions still? Board Member Sherry, questions?
one question about the finish of the posts on the back proposed covered patio. Was that white painted posts? What was that supposed to be?
So this is really just schematic at this point. Yeah, I mean, I think that actually would be black. I think that could be painted darker. All those of the posts and that element there.
So kind of TBD.
TBD on finish, yep.
No more questions?
I have one question, two questions on the upper image that we're seeing. So there are two locations that we're seeing a jog in the roof. I'm going to talk on orientation of the sheet. On the left side, there's a jog. What is it in the floor plan there that it's a jog?
That's a little that's the primary bedroom, so it's a little sitting bay, and that again is that south view. So there's a place to sit and actually see this.
So if you feel the part that it's like inwards, like why it's not like fully come out? Like why?
There's a setback, a front yard setback.
There's a front set. Okay, that's the constraint. And there's another on the angled roof on the side. We're seeing there's a little jog in perspective on the right side of the same image.
Right here?
Yeah.
That's existing.
That's existing. Yeah. It's not visible in the existing images because like the materiality is just like blending it because it's one material. I didn't notice it. Okay. It's just more visible now that it's like contrast of the white and the dark. Okay. Okay. That was my questions. Okay.
I guess I do have a question, since we've talked about that central element in the siding, and I think rereading the comments, maybe I got a little confused with the intentions versus what was made in the motion. I'd be curious to hear from your perspective, taking our comments around, featuring potential original elements and wood, like what would this, is what you're proposing today, what you would recommend for how you're breaking up the stucco versus the wood siding, or taking our previous comments out of the picture, like what would your goal balance of siding versus stucco be?
Yeah, I think this is a nice way to do it. I think this makes the wood more of like a feature element rather than a general element. And I think then the stucco can be a nice backdrop to the landscape and then really make that wood area sing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move to comments. Board Member Sherry, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to look at this project completely different now, and the two iterations that you've done have kind of helped me through that. And by the way, I didn't make the comments about the Barry Burkus design because he was a friend of mine. It was because as a board, we need to look at cohesive style, and the challenge with this house is the fact that you've got this very unique massing that worked really well when it was a sculpture of wood. And now we have to, we would look at it as its own style because we're really not keeping that style anymore. So the question is then, as if this project were coming to us as a brand new ground up house, how do we feel about the proposed style? And I think that it's different, and it's not, in my opinion, unapprovable as, just looking at it as a completely different house with, I think it's actually kind of unique, like you say, with having the stucco kind of surrounding the wood and kind of embracing it on both sides. I wouldn't have minded the garage being in wood too, because there's a lot of plaster on the front, but if, I'm not opposed to the stucco garage, but I think now just looking at the house as a completely different house, is it approvable, in my opinion, in this approach? I think it is. I think that continue to explore the materiality of the the north-facing patio and what that is. Right now in white, it doesn't seem to be working. I think that the white elements are working really well with the massing as a mass, but then when you get to the lighter framing members, that there's an opportunity there to just use more of a darker finish that would kind of tie in with the windows and doors and the railings, instead of bringing the white into those elements. So those are my comments.
Board Member Graffiti.
Okay, thank you. So agree with a lot of that. I think I would recommend either playing around with doing the garage and the wood siding, or I would revisit the aloes in the front. I think it looks nice with the color and blooming, but that's realistically only going to be like that for a couple months of the year. And I think having that whole massing, just white stucco, and I think probably this depends on the color that you pick, but might be a bit much. Same thing with the back patio. I know you mentioned it's kind of a native hillside. It might be worth noting, you know, if there are larger native plants, like what's there, what's going to be remaining, and if there isn't much in that spot, just with that plaster wall, whether it's white or another color, recommending some additional plantings there. In general, it is kind of tough when you have a footprint and a massing in a certain style and you keep that massing, as a lot of the board has said, but then change the style. And we've actually just had a similar project with similar notes. But I do think looking at our findings, looking at a lot of what you've done with the project, and even in the current state that it is today, it is an improvement, and I do find it acceptable, just with those comments.
Board Member Moslehi.
I agree with all the comments that were made. It's really hard to work with an existing sculpture. That when I break down the original sculpture, which not growing up here, I don't know the architect, but I respect. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm breaking it up with the vertical element, which the wood siding of the original is vertical, and then the angled, I'm going with the hierarchy, the angled wood siding, which was the same angle, and then the horizontal piece of the garage, which had like this strong horizontal line that was breaking up the massing in front of it. So I think like looking at two options that you had like previous time and this one is like disregarding the original sculpture. This is more cohesive and definitely is trying to like becoming like its own character. The garage piece, connecting to the comments that was made, to me is just like too much plaster, and because it's like ahead of the whole massing, it's looking much more bigger as well. I think the language that you have in the back of the outdoor area, you have like the fascia, which is black, and you mentioned that the structure will be black. So I think that horizontal line, either you go with that garage being wood as well or dark, because now it doesn't look like the character of the garage, which is in front of the house. It's like a room, especially with the proportion of the windows. So that will help. Or the landscaping can like blend it a little bit more so it's not like a huge mass. The two little things that are bothering me is like those little jogs, which is like a little bit like cohesiveness of the massing and geometry are, I know that it's like that one is constrained, one is like the existing, but I'm looking forward to see what are the solutions to have like a more stronger geometry there, because that little points, maybe it's from special angles that will weaken the geometry, not everywhere. But I really appreciate like the improvement, and I think this, it's really going to a good path to be like its own character.
I think that it's a better move to disregard, the triangle, like to just say, you know, goodbye and this is a new style. I think the thing that I think the center tower doesn't feel like a center tower from the front because it steps back, and so you start to go like, why is it splitting this in half? And so I think that needs some work. I think one of the things that like makes sense of it in the neighborhood would be a consistency of like the bigger geometry, but I also don't want a giant white thing either. And so it might be, will you go back to the old plans with the wood garage? You know, I think the thing here was more trying to figure out like what were we keeping or not from before. But I think approaching it this way with the amount of wood at the front felt softer. I don't know. And board member Mosley, I get your point about the way that it steps back right now at the setback feels like the way you would set back in a more traditional architecture, where like this is so like funky geometry. Like in reality, you'd probably like angle that wall along the property line instead, or no, sorry, not property line, setback. But it does feel like it's bringing in one more kind of push. And if you go back to the proposed, I think that the comment about the porch was more about the roof creating this horizontal line. I think, you know, it's probably fine floating if the colors blended into the hillside. I don't know if you're getting usable space blocking all of that in, and if you are, then maybe okay. But if you're not really getting square footage in the basement, I don't know that that's necessary work to be doing, and could just be colored to where the materials feel lighter and kind of fall away into the hillside. And that could be with, as you had already mentioned, like darker posts and beam. Yeah. And I just trying to think of the findings that we'll make. I think generally the geometry is like what was already there. We're adding mass on the left-hand side, but it doesn't feel out of proportion with the masses of the following two houses that are all the similar style. So I think from size, bulk, and scale, that feels okay.
I had one other comment when you're done, and it took me a while because everybody's kind of commented on the garage, and in wood that the amount of building above the windows is.
I know.
It's
what
so
worked before was this
tall.
horizontal thing holding it.
And so when it's all wood, it looks like a lot of wood, but when it's all plaster, it looks like a lot of plaster. So I was trying to figure out a way to maybe there's a way to study. I mean, I think you're getting close, much closer, but I think that it's now become an exercise in materiality. And so I think that the front garage, there might be an opportunity to maybe make the area below the windows all wood and then have a piece of plaster come up above it, and that would break up that large kind of mass that's still looking like that sculpture, but now we're not dealing with the sculpture anymore. And additionally, the element that kind of pops out on the left side of the house, even though when it turns the corner it keeps going in a straight line, it almost looks like a little piece that if you had designed that from scratch, it might just be its own element, and maybe there's an opportunity there to make that piece out of wood. And then you have this more playing between wood and plaster instead of all plaster and just the wood in the middle, and you don't have all wood, but maybe there's a little bit, maybe there's a way to just add more wood in a couple of places. And it might, that might complete it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think ways to, I'm trying to think motion-wise too. I think that theoretically, on our list, Material samples and colors can be approved as part of final, and so it could still receive, if we're generally okay with the massing, could receive PDA and then come back for final with these materials. I think the other thing that could help with the garage is the way that you've treated the upper tower, the roof of that, where you've got even that delineation, you've got that line of the roof material, I think helps, and anything like that helping to break up this garage. But I do think introducing some sort of subdivision so that it's not one tall piece of plaster for the garage could help. Okay, does anyone want to make a motion? I don't want to. I motioned down.
I'll make a motion for project design approval with the following comments, that the board appreciates the fresh look at the massing and understands the challenges of the design challenges of this project. Applicant shall continue to look for ways to break up the massing of the garage by with the use of materials and the proportions of plaster and wood. And continue resolving the materiality in terms of exact locations of wood overall on the project. The board looks forward to a resolution of the materiality of the north covered patio area. And the applicant to return with a color material board. And the applicant to return with a landscape plan that reflects a possible solution to the height of the landscaping proposed in front of the garage that could maybe a alternative solution. I don't know, I'm kind of like skipping around. A solution that would be appropriate for the front of the garage, and ask the landscape architect to study the planting in front of the garage.
To soften the massing.
To soften the massing, yeah. I don't know what you were proposing on the roof. Were you proposing, you weren't there yet with that?
Well, in this submittal, we've got metal, so.
Okay,
it's
good.
metal
Okay,
on
so
there,
I'm
yeah.
fine with that. And that's my motion. Okay.
I will second that motion.
With
findings.
Yeah, we gotta do all the fun stuff.
Findings. The proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. The proposed development is compatible with the neighborhood, and its size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the site and neighborhood, as the existing size and scale is remaining primarily unchanged. The proposed buildings and structures are designed with quality architectural details, and the proposed materials and colors maintain the natural appearance of the ridgeline or hillside with the continued use of the wood siding elements as part of this project. No trees are being proposed to be removed as part of this project. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. The project generally complies with the Good Neighbor Guidelines regarding privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting. The development, including proposed structures and grading, preserves significant public scenic views of and from the hillside, as no grading is proposed as part of this project. The development, including the proposed structures and grading as appropriate to the site, is designed to avoid visible scarring and does not significantly modify the natural topography of the site or the natural appearance of any ridgeline or hillside, as no changes to the massing or the grading are proposed in this project, in this proposal. The development maintains a scale and form that blends with the hillside by minimizing the visual appearance of structures and the overall height of structures, with the introduction, with the combination of the plaster and the wood siding elements.
There are more findings.
Yeah, we
Oh,
do have
there's
these
more.
grading. Yeah, we have grading findings. Even though there's not landscape grading, there is for some areas underneath the posts of the deck. It's relatively minor, but I think
There's grading proposed under the deck?
It's for the caissons.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really grading. It's because they don't count grading as footings displacement. But
The proposed grading will not significantly increase siltation in or decrease the water quality of streams, drainages, or water storage facilities. It's a good thing they put that water storage facilities in there, to which the property drains, due to the grading being limited to the construction of caissons to support the northern covered patio. And the proposed grading will not cause a substantial loss of southern oak woodland habitat, as no oak trees are being proposed to be removed.
Okay, I will second that.
Chair Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sherry,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Moslahi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And just to announce the appeal process, so there's 10 days to submit an appeal. If we don't get anything, we'll see you back here for final approval. And as to the last item, I did look it up. It was not an official decision, so no appeal of that continuance can be made. Thank you for the correction.
Great. Okay, with that, our board meeting for April 7th has ended.